What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Good to see you guys. Couple minutes late getting started. Apologies for that. Was just getting my act together behind the scenes, getting everything updated, putting the site together. I realized that the new data on the stacks board wasn't properly displaying, so I just redid that real quick. That went up on the site. Pulling down some results from our pitching picks contest, getting everything together. But big slate to get through tonight. 12 games on board on both sites. 7 o'clock start with those 6:45 games are left off, fortunately, on both sites. So plenty of time to talk through it, but we're going to dive in. Interesting setup for tonight. We've got a nice deep pitching slate. We've got a broken up slate where there's a big chunk of games early up till like 7:45, and then almost a 2-hour window where there's no new starts until like 9:35, I believe was the setup time-wise, if I got that correct as I was glancing at it earlier. Not usually something I pay much attention to, but just something that stood out to me. I think it's a really interesting board with some depth as far as the top of the pitching board peaks really high and then thins out somewhat quickly with some maybe frisky value options once we start digging in down here, and then some really obvious looking targets. But it's going to be an interesting pitching slate. It's a robust hitting slate, I'll say. We're going to take a look at some of the new data that I put on the stacks board with probabilities for run scoring in just a few minutes. But yeah, we've got first 6 games are between 7:05 and 7:45, and then we take a break until we get out west, and we start with the California games, the Arizona game, 9:38 in Los Angeles for the Angels and Rangers, and then 9:40 in Arizona, and so forth. So 2 big chunks. I'm actually kind of proud of FanDuel for not breaking that into 2 separate slates. John Hansi, yes, there are new columns on the stacks board. Let me pull that up right now. It's a good place to get us started for today's show and actually click my brain into actually talking about this. I put it on the slate here. So where you'll see the new columns, let me kill the pitching. Who is this? I think it's Jake Bennett. Pretty sure that was Jake Bennett. Not relevant for today. Follow at Kevin Roth for weather, by the way. I haven't pulled the weather board down. I didn't even actually glance at it today. Let me take a quick look at that just to make sure. I don't think there's anything crazy problematic. A couple of yellows. Nothing that looks too troublesome. So I think we're fine weather-wise. But glad I noticed that sitting there so I could remember to check it real quick. But yeah, new information on the stacks board. I think it's relevant to just informing, why the teams are highly ranked. In a lot of cases, you're going to see really strong correlation between the new columns here and just how things are ranked in general. There will be times where there's some conversation back and forth between my rankings, the home run rankings, let's say the Vegas ranking, as far as the implied team totals. And you'll see some of that going on most specifically with the Vegas ranking today. There's some pretty direct correlation with where I've got teams where my projections, my value numbers and so forth have teams and compared with their run scoring, their ceiling probabilities. But you'll notice a few of those Vegas totals are disagreeing with that somewhat. And I think that's the important thing to hit and why I ultimately decided to finally add this to the table and provide it on the website. Something I always look at, something I take into account as I rank the teams and I go through it. And it's, the sums of the projections, and then I get into getting everything situated properly. But it's something I've always had in mind. And what I'm talking about are these new 4 columns over here to the right of the Vegas rank. And I'm giving you the raw probability totals. So what this is, starting with this column here, is the probability via Fangraphs Game Sims, taking my data out of it entirely, of the team scoring 8+ runs, 8 or more runs. It's the collective probability of they break it into 10 slots. They break it from 0 to 10 plus. So that's accounting for 8 runs, 9 runs, or 10 or more runs. All just collectively the aggregate probability for each of the teams. And then I'm ranking those. And then we're doing the same thing for just the 10 plus run column. What are their probabilities of scoring 10 or more runs? This is scoring them however. Not accounting for necessarily power versus compiling runs versus sequencing, which is something we get into more when we talk about the home run model, and you can see those discrepancies right in here. So that's another spot you might see some differences. But I think it's important to talk about this a little bit more as compared to the implied team totals, which are really just focused on where the meat of it is, in the 4 to 6 run range, where the mean scoring takes place. And we're really chasing those long tails more. right? So it makes more sense to at least have this on the board as a comparison point. When you see, let's say, the Rockies ranked 6th by points, 5th by points on DraftKings, 4th and 3rd by value, despite coming in at the 13th ranked total, 15th by their implied team total in Vegas. You can see they're 5th ranked by their probability of scoring 8 or more runs. They're 5th ranked by their probability and one of only a handful of teams at 10 plus probability of scoring 10 or more runs. Benefiting from a matchup against a young starter who pitched pretty well his last time out, but is unproven in a hitter-friendly environment. You can see where the Diamondbacks are at the very top of the board on a better side of that same game. 33% probability of scoring 8 or more runs, 17.7 leading both categories of scoring 10 or more runs. Top-ranked team, 2nd by value, 4th by value on DraftKings, 4th by home runs. They're facing Tomo Sagano, a pincushion of a pitcher. Speaking of pitching, enter I keep calling it the home run picks contest. Enter the home run pitcher pick contest. You got to pick the best. Got to pick a high-end starter for the day. I'll end up taking somebody off the board. I haven't decided who yet. I've got an inkling. What we're looking for is the pick to come back in comments after the video. And first 1 to 5 wins himself a free month of rotoscouts content. You can see the scoreboards over here. Nobody's gotten one right. It's only been running a couple days, only a few entries so far. So far, less popular than the home run picks contest, but hoping you guys dive in. I think it's a good setup. What we want is you got to pick the starter who puts up a quality start, which is 3 or fewer earned runs in 6 innings or more, and they need to strike out 8 or more hitters. You get that right, and multiple guys can do it on the same night. The same guy can be picked by several of you as well. There's no worries about cross picking. You just can't pick the guy I take off the table. You have to use the same YouTube handle every day so I can keep track of you. And 1 pick per person per day has to come from the games on this slate. So no picking Paul Skeens from that early slate. No return of O'Neal Cruz yet, by the way, for the Pirates today. Was hoping for it, but didn't make it into the Dynasty League lineup because I wasn't sure if he was going to get back, and looks like they're going to send him for a little bit more of a rehab stint. Anyway, so I thought those were interesting additions to the stacks board. Let me pull the chat back up here. Andy seems to like it, so good. I hope that adds value to the conversation. It's up on the website in the stacks board data, just like you see it here in the image, as well as in the table for you guys to sort to your heart's content. So yeah, strong point of data there. And you'll see it again, bouncing off, some of those Vegas marks. So like the Brewers are another team that I think is a good example of that kind of mid-board projections wise, which I think makes sense. They were coming in just 16th by value, and they're facing Walker Buehler, who's been fine in some spots, but is ultimately gettable, especially for a good sequencing machine like that team. So via those probabilities of getting up into the ceiling territory runs wise, they gain a little ground, and that was reflected already in projections because that's a good team. So it's not necessarily going to be in that mid fours implied team total. So it's just kind of, again, different lens through which to look at the same information. So hopefully that helps. Really interesting board. You can see some premium pitchers keeping teams really, really limited down at the bottom of the board here. No surprises. Blake Snell making his return today. Got out to like mid 70s. Pitches in, he made 4 rehab outings, but I wouldn't expect much more than 5, even if things go strongly to plan. Typically not a guy who works all that deep into games anyway. But Dylan Cease, Kyle Harrison, it was tremendous in just 5 innings in his last start. Chrissy Sanchez, Patrick Sandoval's been pretty good in a few outings. Hunter Brown, same thing, and a premium starter there. And then we work up the board with Sean Burke, who has been mostly very good throughout the season. Cincinnati drawing a little bit in terms of home run, maybe a little bit around value. Probably looking like the best of those bottom-ranked teams. The Red Sox going up against Dylan Cease. I'm sorry, you're not going to get more highly ranked than that when you can't keep track of how many outs there might be. I don't know if you guys saw that yesterday. It was a mess. I think it was actually the scorer's fault, or the mechanics behind the game scoring. I think they had the wrong outs on the scoreboard, if I read that correctly, but big time screw up in the weird situation in that game. And the call into New York and just figure out whether the run counted. The guy from third base never tagged up, scored the run, but it was a timing play. Really interesting situation. Just one of those crazy baseball things where you watch forever and you always see something new, and it happens constantly throughout the season. But anyway, interesting stacks board today. Some of the obvious spots up toward the top, Tampa Bay in that ballpark facing Mason Barnett. The Dodgers are always going to look good, but I don't think you're completely crazy if you roll some low-owned Michael Wacha. He's a solid mid-board type starter at a fair price, but odds are the Dodgers get to him. They're pulling a 30% plus probability of scoring 8 or more runs. We dip a little bit around Philly into Colorado, Texas. A lot of same through like this part of the board. That's where you get your back and forth combinations with your obvious chalk of the day. So as I'm looking at this, once you start talking about, all right, we want to get Arizona, Tampa Bay, Dodgers probably going to be fairly chalky across those teams. Maybe Philly, at least to a degree. And Philly also has a little bit of a negative situation working there where Andre Palante's just good at keeping the ball down, keeping the ball in the yard. So hard-hitting team like Philly, you can see 18th ranked in the home run column today. So just one little minor negative, not that they can't sequence Andre Palante to death, not that they can't hit home runs against Andre Palante, but it is a minor negative working against them as we evaluate the board. So maybe we do start thinking about a team like Texas that's coming in solid 20s, just under, the top tier here as far as the probability of scoring 10 or more runs. They're drawing the first ranked power rating against a kid who has been struggling with home runs in the major leagues, Ryan Johnson. So grabbing one of those teams, this is where we're just trying to inform a little bit more about what teams like Texas, what teams like maybe Houston, Baltimore, Milwaukee, Minnesota, and the Athletics look like today in comparison to those top spots, because that's what we're always looking to do, right? Is get a little bit different while still choosing a good team that compares pretty favorably. There's not much difference between 20% and 25.9%. So get a little bit away from the chalk and make good selections as we go down the board. So I think Texas is really interesting for that. Carson Whisenhunt is good, but has not been good at the major league level yet. Probably needs more seasoning, and that Houston team is also very good through that lineup. They're drawing the second-ranked power. Some of that is driven by Jordan Alvarez just drawing a massive number, but he's in that lineup, and you'll be able to use him. So not a bad spot there, and he is the best lefty hitter in baseball. So there's no concerns around that. And then just usable teams through that beefy middle. So really interesting setup, and I think this does help the conversation a little bit. Clintwood saying, "Oh man, the Rangers are about to break his heart again, aren't they?" Yeah, probably going to break my heart too. I'm going to have them in my lineups as well tonight. Home run pick of the day comes from the Texas Rangers. It's too juicy a spot to avoid, but probably going to break our hearts. Yeah. John Anderson, yeah, we're supposed to make good selections. That's what I'm doing wrong all this time. Yeah, who knew? Yeah, just again, trying to help inform those, right? John Hans is saying today the top 6 projection ranks are the A+ and the 10+ for DK. Interesting to see for future days. Yeah, again, there will be a lot of just directly correlated back and forth between my projection rankings and how those rankings are borne out, because a lot of that informs the projections on the back end. There will be days where it stands out with more differences than today does. Today, it's just basically a straight line between the two. And I think that's kind of clear just because of how linear the pitching matchups are. We go from very good pitchers down the bottom through like mid-grade pitchers right into bad pitchers. And every day doesn't line up exactly like that. So I think it's just a very straight line kind of a day. But there will be very strong correlation between these new categories and these the projection categories specifically. Meech, what's going on? Travis Duarte, is Texas going to be chalk, though? Does it even matter? Again, it matters. But if you're getting to differentiated plays within the lineup, which is why we talk about everybody in these different lineups, and if you're getting them in combination with different pieces, then just the next biggest piece of chalk, the chalkiest possible pitching, you're already making very different combinations. You're putting together unique lineups anyway. So you worry about it a little bit less. You've got to get through the chafe, obviously. If they do connect, then you're going to be, carving your path through a lot of competitive teams when you're playing the chalkiest of the chalk options. But just because something's popular does not mean we want to take it out of consideration, or when it looks quite as good as it does, even necessarily knock it down. They are 4th ranked by Vegas total. I think they'll get kind of popular in the conversation. Colorado is almost certainly going to be a lot lower owned in that part of the board as the 15th ranked Vegas total. They come up just 13th by home run ranking, and they're not a good squad. I'd much rather have some of those Texas bats, but there are some interesting kids up at the top of that Colorado lineup now that we'll talk about. And again, they'll go through lower owned just by where that implied team total comes in as people evaluate this and how that lineup and the players in it compare to everybody in Philly, LA, the Rays, the Diamondbacks. These are just perceived as much better organizations, much better lineups. So that one will go through a little thin. You want me to give the home run call now, Trav? We got a ways to go. We got to get to this game before we get to the home run call. That's going to be a minute. It's the leadoff hitter from the Rangers. Looks pretty solid today. Just that, again, that spot in general is just explosive for home run upside across that lineup. And just looking good in general as far as putting up a nice run total. Ryan Johnson, over his 10 starts, 50 and 2/3 innings in the show this year, a 7.11 ERA with a 5.58 xFIP under the surface. He's allowed 13 home runs in 10 starts, including exactly one in each of his last 5 starts, 2 in a start prior to that stretch, and 1 in a start before that one. So at least 1 home run in 7 straight starts. He's got 3 starts throughout the year with 2 home runs allowed. Quite a target for home run upside, and there's some hard-hitting lefties in that Rangers lineup that I like. So the leadoff hitter is the home run pick of the day. Could have gone in several different directions. I think 4 guys in that lineup above the magic number of 10 in the home run model today, and a couple guys like Brendan Nimmo lurking, just beneath it. So interesting spot there. Looking at the board in Vegas, just to talk through that, again, looking at, so that's what this is the exact difference I wanted to illustrate, right? We're looking at 3s and 4s and, between upper 3s and into the 6s as your most likely ranges. And that's why we get these implied totals through the Vegas categories. But what we're really looking for is these long tails. So that's why it's important to distinguish the two. Probably should have been doing this more. Again, it's always been part of the back end. It's always been part of the numbers, but just as part of the conversation and having it available at our fingertips to talk about during the show. Mariners and the Yanks, 384 implied total on the Mariners side. Yankees pulling in at 424, looking a little bit better. They're going up against Brian Wu, who's a tremendous starter, but has really struggled in crazy, odd fashion on the road throughout the season. Last 2 road starts against the Dodgers and the Rangers, exactly 5 earned runs in, exactly 5 innings in each start. Came home last time out, 7 innings against the Tigers, 3 hit them, no runs, 5 strikeouts, was dynamite. It is bananas how split it's been home road. Going into Yankee Stadium, even against the diminished Yankees lineup that it's been over recent months, is not exactly a favorable situation to change that equation. But if Brian Wu finds any of his talent tonight, he's certainly in the mix to put a better score than one would expect. Yanks bats in play in a minor way from the middle of the board. Ryan Weathers looking interesting on the mound, pulling a 30-15 type projection across the 2 sites. Been pretty good through the season. Has a little bit of an issue with premium contact that maybe the Mariners exploit. They're showing a little bit of power upside as well. But by and large, Weathers has been good and is capable of breaking off a nice deep start here and finding some Ks. The Red Sox and the Blue Jays, Patrick Sandoval, interesting enough starter. 25 strikeouts across his 24 innings in 5 starts thus far. Facing that low strikeout Blue Jay squad is never good for anybody's absolute ceiling. They could definitely base hit him to death, sequence to death. If he loses hitters to walks, which he did last time out, 5 strikeouts before walks over 5 innings against the White Sox, only ended up allowing 2 earned runs, but gave up 6 hits in that one. That's a recipe for disaster against any squad, especially one that just puts the ball in play like the Blue Jays. So a little bit bumpy around Sandoval, but playable, low total, sub 4 implied total for the Blue Jays. Good pitching situation in general with Dylan Cease on the mound on the other side. 7-run total for the game. Cease facing that Red Sox team that is due for a collapse at some point, as we've talked about a few times. Got to say it. 3.30 implied total for them. Cease looking pretty dynamite across the entire season. 2.28 ERA with a 2.62 xFIP backing it up. Yeah, we can take a piece of that. The Mets and the Braves, 8.5 total. Both teams coming in above 4. Mid 4s implied on the Braves side, going up against Nolan McLean. The Mets will be facing Martin Perez. I'd probably rather have Mets bats against Perez in a vacuum than facing a kid like Nolan McLean. But that Braves lineup is pretty good. You'll note that they're right next to one another. and kind of directly in conversation. But once we get into the probability categories, you can see again a pretty stark difference. There's 3 points of probability on the 8+ runs, two-ish, 1.5 points of probability on the 10+ runs going in the Mets direction, which again, I think backs up what I just said about I'd rather face Martin Perez, who has been okay this year, pitching to a 3.14 ERA, but a 4.14 xFIP under the surface, so he's overperforming. Only 78 Ks in his 103rd innings across 18 starts, just allows contact. As bumpy as that Mets lineup has been through the season, there's playability there. We just saw them go off for some runs yesterday. And McLean's just good, but the Braves are good as well. Get back to that runs board. The Reds pulling in at just a 3.40 implied total. They're facing Sean Burke, who has been pretty terrific through the season. He's pitched to a 3.08 ERA, and he's backing it up with a 3.67 xFIP under the surface. Found Ks this year, 144 strikeouts across 128 2/3. That's dynamite. He's been really good. Only, how many times has he given up more than 3 earned runs? Four of his 19 starts all year. He's given up more than 3 earned runs. Only 1 did he give up more than 4. Not bad. Kind of a quiet breakout year for Sean Burke. 4.18 implied total on the other side of that. The White Sox will be facing Nick Lodolo, who's coming back from a blister situation. Made, I believe, 1 rehab, only threw like 50 some odd pitches, if I'm remembering correctly. Was working on a new grip with the breaking ball. Since it wasn't something, it was just before the All-Star break. It's 2 weeks. It wasn't the longest of layoffs. I don't think it's going to be a severe limitation on pitch count, but he's also not a guy who typically pitches all that deep into games anyway. So I think it's just generally kind of limited to around 5 innings as a ceiling, and it's not typically somebody we're going to want to get to all that aggressively anyway. The Sox pulling in at a 4.18 implied total. Just enough reason to go away from a Lodolo. Brandon Young against Bailey Ober, pushing upside to bats in that Minnesota and Baltimore game. 4.46 implied total for the O's, 4.63 implied for the Twins. Bats on either side of that one. Wouldn't completely knock me out of my chair if either guy had a effective enough start, but neither guy's been incredibly sharp. 3.43 ERA for Brandon Young with some strikeouts, but not even a strikeout per inning, and also pitching to a 4.40 xFIP under the surface. And then Ober's been mostly bad, 4.45 ERA, 4.84 xFIP, and limited strikeout numbers. So bats on both sides of that one. The Phils with Christy Sanchez on the mound, definitely an appealing starter, keeping the Cards down at just a 3.35 implied total. He looks spectacular up near the top of the board. As mentioned, the Phillies only limited maybe by Andre Palante's ability to keep the ball down. Hasn't given up a home run in his last 4 starts, 10 homers allowed in 22 starts on the season. So that's his one strong skill. Going to be pitching to contact. Phil's still pulling a 4.24 implied total. Looked plenty fine. Low total for that game, but that's mostly Christy Sanchez limiting the card side of it. So maybe we pick the Phils off at lower ownership in general. Cody Bradford on the mound for the Rangers, 4 1/3 in his 1 start in the show. Struck out 5, walked 2, allowed 5 hits, faced 20 against the Giants. I give him basically the same start, 5 innings for today. Had not completed 5 in a few outings through July in AAA, or coming up in several in AA, and then 1 in AAA on his way back. But I think we're good for 5 if all goes to plan, and then hand off to the bullpen here. That said, I don't think we want Cody Bradford. Interested maybe in some Angels power against from the top if you're building a lot of lineups, but not one of the go-to squads of the day. And then the Rangers pulling in with that top-ranked home run total, a little bit off the very top of the board, but one of those just interesting, mid-ranked type squads with some upside visible across basically every category we're looking at here. And pulling in at just that 4.89 implied total. Maybe, again, there probably will be buzzy for the home run upside that Ryan Johnson's just been a target for home run power through the season. But maybe we squeak him through at slightly lower ownership than the absolute chalk of the day, which would probably be the Tampa Bay Rays at a 6+ implied total. How about that Jacob Lopez last night? I mentioned it in Discord at the end of the night. It's going to be deceptive if people just look at the box score, because the Rays ended up scoring, 10? I think they had an 8-run outburst late in the game. But Lopez put up a strong start. He went deep into the game, allowed, I think, just 2 earned runs through his start. Wasn't a blockbuster DFS score, but it was yet another good outing for him against a good team in that ballpark, just proving the point that he definitely is capable of knocking those squads down and isn't necessarily a target like his 5+ ERA looked like, or his 5+ XFIP as well, and like that run total looked like yesterday. So we've always got to take into account what those matchups look like. But today, the Rays get to face Mason Barnett, which certainly looks favorable for them. On the other side, the Athletics at a 4.58 implied total, not to be ignored, going up against Nick Martinez. Martinez mostly pitching over his head throughout the season, but works 6 innings fairly consistently. I don't think we're looking at him. I think we're probably looking more into A's bats. Diamondbacks, one of the classy spots of the slate, top of the board overall, are most likely 8+ run scorer, most likely 10+ run scorer in the new categories. 5.18 implied total, looking great going up against Tomo Sugano. Mitch Bratt on the other side, sub-4 implied total again for the Rockies. Definitely a different Vegas total than what we're seeing in terms of the ceiling probabilities. So if we talk about just chasing those long tails, that's the exact back and forth we're looking to have there. Going up against Mitch Bratt, he struck out 9 Padres in 7 innings, allowed just 1 hit to 24 hitters, no earned runs, walked 3 in that start, but was obviously terrific his last time out. That was against the Pods. Start before that, 5 pretty good innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, struck out 2 and walked 4 though. So between the walks, giving away some opportunities, not that the Rocks are great at exploiting that. Maybe we get there. And then the home run upside that the Rockies can provide comes through to break the back of the scoring. Kyle Harrison, tremendous last time out in just 5 innings. He faced 16 hitters and struck out 10 of them against the Pirates. Monster 50+ FanDuel score in just 5 innings. Allowed 1 hit, no earned runs, walked 1. Was out of the game. He had cramping in his leg. That was his first start back from his forearm injury that cost him about a month. But given the 5 innings, given the fact that it was just an incidental cramping in the leg that took him out of the game, I think we're fine on depth. I think 6 innings is probably in the cards if everything goes to plan, even if it's just 5 and change against this gettable Padres lineup. Gotta love the upside. 3.67 implied total for them. I think Kyle Harrison looks tremendous, and the hope would be that people are worried about short starting. They might manage his innings a little bit going, over the next few, but he's proven that even if they do, we could still come away with a good DFS score. My hope there would be that knocks the ownership down somewhat. Walker Buehler on the other side, just maybe pushing the Brewers up the board a little bit. Hunter Brown against Carson Whisenhunt. I think we can definitely attack Whisenhunt with some of those Astros, although he is good. Spectacular changeup. Has not figured it out at this level in any way, shape, or form yet, though. And then the last game, Michael Wacha, again, potentially, at least the potential to maybe surprise and keep the Dodgers suppressed a little bit. Kind of in the nature of a Jacob Lopez last night. And then Dodgers get to the Royals bullpen and put up a 12 anyway and break the slate. But Wacha's good enough. And I also have him getting a little bit more depth than I think maybe other people do, because even when he gives up a handful of runs, unless it's a total meltdown, they're giving him 6+. So he's just a guy who works deep into games anyway. Blake Snell on the other side, not likely to pitch more than 5 innings in his return, just his second start in the show. Got out to 73 pitches in his in the 4th of 4 rehab starts. So relatively stretched out, but I think we're looking at probably an 85 pitch, 5 and change cap. So not a ton of ceiling. He does project there because he's excellent. 9,000 though, when you talk about that price against the other prices both above him and immediately below him, knowing that he doesn't have the ceiling that all those guys sharing his median projection and price have, it definitely takes him out of the mix. Good as he is, possible as it is that he goes out and puts up a Kyle Harrison in 5 innings, like Harrison did the other day. Through that, you can have some Snell, but I wouldn't consider him as big a piece as he might normally look through the median projection from that spot on the board. Dylan Cease, tremendous at the top. Chrissy Sanchez right there with him. Either one of those options, they project essentially the same. They're also priced essentially the same in pretty gettable matchups. Kyle Harrison against the Pods, discounted at 95 on both sites. I like that option a lot. Again, that's a low-end Padres lineup overall, and Harrison's tremendous. So even if we're a little bit short-started, and I like his chances to give us 6, I think that's a great piece for that discount. Right there with the top of the board when it comes to ceiling. Nothing would stop Kyle Harrison today from equaling or eclipsing Dylan Cease's score. Sean Burke, probably a little bit lower ceiling than those guys, but a strong projection and also a nice discount at just 8,500. I'm not sure DraftKings is fully awake on what Sean Burke's been doing this year. He's been very good. And that Reds team has strikeout potential in it. There's an upside in that start. Same thing's true for Hunter Brown against the Giants. He's not discounted the same way, but 94, 93 is a fair price to pay for him against the scuffling Giants lineup. McClain, I don't love, off projected a little bit as compared to the top end guys. Definitely as talented as that group of pitchers. I have no issue saying that, or is going to eventually develop into that apex type pitcher and is well on his way. But going up against the Braves lineup that is probably the best lineup in that mix of opposing teams doesn't really do him any favors. Those prices don't really do him any favors. So out of all the strong spots, I don't really love this one. And the same thing's probably true for Woo, except you get a big discount on him. DraftKings, I think, overreacting maybe to the road thing. At some point that normalizes. He's not just afraid of pitching on the road. Something weird's gone on, certainly. But he's a super talented guy who was excellent last year, is excellent at home. It's just weird that's a very pitcher-friendly park that they play in. But it's just weird that it would be as split as it is. So that price at 83 is an overreaction to that situation. But the Yankees are the Yankees. It is Yankee Stadium. It's not a favorable situation. So knock him a little bit like with Nolan McClain. I think Weathers gives you plenty of upside for the money from his spot there against that gettable Mariners lineup with some strikeout. And then we get a little bit bumpy. Brendan Young, Cody Bradford, just playable. Patty Sandoval has that issue on the FanDuel side where a couple extra guys on base hit here and there from that low strikeout Blue Jay squad bends his day a little bit. At 6,900 on DraftKings, Patty Sandoval is a huge part of the SP2 conversation. That's a great value price for a guy who's more than capable of going out there and putting up a solid 5+ inning start and keeping Toronto somewhat in check. I would rather have Patty Sandoval against Toronto than Bailey Ober against Baltimore at 67. He projects similarly, but most of his talent is out the window. Michael Wacha, if he was a little bit cheaper, would be a great value option. Right now, he's just a playable one who is not going to be owned at that 8,000, but he's priced more like a mid-board guy. He's priced in the Brian Wu category. I'd rather have Wu against the Yankees at 83, I think, than Wacha against the Dodgers at 8,000. But it wouldn't stun me if Michael Wacha went out, twirled, 6+ effective innings, 3 earned runs, 4 or 5 strikeouts. Probably not a great shot to win the game, but an effective enough outing at no ownership. 87 on FanDuel is a little problematic. Still has an okay shot at a quality start. But at that price, there's too much danger and too much downside lurking there. I don't think it's worth doing. Martinez probably a target for Athletics bats, but 75 is at least workable into the conversation from the mid-board SP2 on DraftKings. There's just so many more preferable spots. And then we get Ugly Palante, not a ton of ceiling. Nick Lodolo, not probably going to pitch overly deep into the game and rather have some White Sox bats against. Talked about Perez against the Mets, but at least he's very cheap for a guy pitching to a low ERA, but a higher, full run higher XFIP. Walker Buehler, I'd rather have Brewers bats, even though they don't look great in terms of the Vegas total in a pitcher-friendly park. And then we're just looking at bats against all these guys down the bottom of the board. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel when you get a chance. Handful of people here watching. Late start today. Not surprised. Lighter turnout. John said nobody here wants to see your back end. Travis Duarte went with the Athletics. Not a bad choice. I think they're a solid mid-board value team. Pretty fair way to say it. The one issue is, as I talked about yesterday, they don't have that masher home run upside with several of those big pieces missing. So you do lose that a little bit, but you gain ground from that ballpark, gain ground plenty from facing Nick Martinez. 5-starter type of a profile, heavy contact. So plenty of upside lurking there for them. 21% probable going over 8 runs, 9.4 competitive with most of, everybody except for the top 3 chalk of the day type teams in Arizona, Tampa Bay, and the Dodgers. Everybody from there down in that green trending into yellow range. Fair play, right? Everybody there is looking very, very similar in terms of those probabilities. Not a huge gulf between 8.1% and 9.2%. Let's get into some game by game. Some of those lineups came down. Again, when I hit the lineups button, you guys can hit the like button if you haven't already. Did any lineups come in? Yeah, there's one. What came in? Okay, we got a handful, just not this first game. Oh, no, there it is. Just had not populated yet. All right, now we're back. Brian Wu on the bump for the Mariners going into Yankee Stadium. Look, I think the world of Brian Wu. 24.3% strikeout against a 5.2% walk, 4.31 ERA with a 3.69 xFIP, 3.60 Sierra. Just some weird stuff going on in those road starts, but it's not even reflected if you look at the xFIP and the Sierra. He's been fine. So a lot of it probably not even his fault. Significantly above average pitcher across all 3+ categories. Look how strong his stuff is. 4 pitches that rate well above average, 3 pitches that rate into double digits above average. He is a fly ball trajectory pitcher that could get problematic in Yankee Stadium to a degree around the Ben Rices of the world. Trent Grisham's got a little lefty pop. Jazz Chisholm hasn't really gotten the engine fully engaged this season, but still does have 17 home runs on the board. Luis Garcia Jr. has 24 long balls. Who saw that coming this year? Been murdering the ball. So there is some danger here for a fly ball pitcher with some of these big lefties in the lineup that can put the ball in the air, and then we just know it can travel into the seats in Yankee Stadium. So it's not a safe spot. Could be another downside day for Wu, but you got to love the DK price. FanDuel price is pretty good as well at 9,000, more than capable of giving you the depth necessary and finding some strikeout against this Yankees lineup that comes in with a 25.9% strikeout rate. It's pretty significant, and Wu doesn't really have a problem with these walk rates. So it's not going to burn him, or it's not as likely to burn him. Going the other direction, Weathers. My one concern remains with Ryan Weathers around some premium contact. He's normalized these numbers pretty significantly over the last handful of starts, though. We're down to an 8.7% barrel, 42.2% hard hit, 89.8 miles an hour of exit velocities the last few years, premium contact the last few years. This year's entirely been about walks and on-base percentage, lowering strikeout rate, setting the table for now guys like Randy Arozarena, Julio Rodriguez. You get Dom Canzone in there would be a huge piece coming out of the Mariners lineup with his power from the left side in Yankee Stadium. Lefty not going to do him any favors, but I would want that bat today if I'm rostering Mariners. Arozarena has been good most of the year, 138 WRC plus on the board, 359 weighted on base with a 352 xWOB in support. Does everything pretty well. 14 homers, 20 stolen bases, doesn't stand out in gigantic ways in any one category. Rodriguez is underperforming his talent on the full season at this point. 258, 322, 424 is not who he is, but a 351 xWOB is still lurking under the surface. 18 homers, 15 steals. There are some things to point at and say, like, still a good player, just not what we expected from him this season. With that in mind, 3,400, still a strong price on FanDuel, but down a little bit. 4,200 on DraftKings is a spectacular discount on that talent. Take the name out of the mix entirely. This price for a right-handed bat in Yankee Stadium against this lefty, just the guy who's done this season, that's a great price. Add on to the fact that you've got multiple years of him being Julio Rodriguez to count on, and it's a tremendous price. Cole Young, mix and match piece in the infield. Cal Raleigh, tremendously disappointing season, only a dozen home runs and 359 plate appearances now. At one point, it was forgivable with a lack of opportunity, but we're talking about a big chunk of season at this point. 161, 267, 303, just dead and gone at the plate. Does still have a 13% barrel rate to focus on. That would be the one thing. And obviously, any given slate, monster upside, and he's very cheap at 3,800 where you need catchers. So still in the mix, but really, really low-end season, 70 WRC plus. Brendan Donovan, always a good mixer in the infield, also quite cheap. Lefty again, matchup there. But when we're focused on slap hitting, just getting to first base, resetting the table for guys that follow, that's perfectly fine to take lefty at those cheap prices and at third or second base. No issues on it. Weston Wilson just in the lineup because he's right-handed, not all that high end. And Colt Emerson really needs to get it together with what they've paid him. 196, 253, 346 from the kid, over 234 plate appearances. 8 home runs on the board, but it's been a minute since he's hit one. 32.9% strikeout. Problematic. On the Yanks side, not out of the question that they bend the day against Brian Wu here. Again, just weird things have happened to Brian Wu on the road this year. Yanks get upside from the lefties. Trent Grisham, good on base percentage when he's going right. This year, just 308. It's been a little bit off the mark over his 390 plate appearances. Still hitting the ball hard. Has 13 home runs on the board, 7 stolen bases. He's lacking in that category compared to expectation, again, against a reduced on-base percentage. But a nice 341 xWOBA lurking under that 309 actual that's below average and really disappointing. Comes from his limitation of strikeout while hitting the ball hard against that walk rate that he adds to it. So that is a good player with a lot of fantasy upside for just 3,100, 4,200 if you're going to Yankees. Leading off ahead of the hitters that you actually want, Ben Rice, his monster home run upside. 32 long balls on the board for Rice this season. Tremendous for premium contact. Elliot Ramos on his new team. 3,900, 2,800 from the right side. 9 home runs on the board and 327 opportunities this year. But the kid has been outstanding at hitting the ball hard throughout his career and consistently hard. Multiple years with double digit and well into the double digit, mid-teens basically, barrel rates. Elevated hard hit rates, so consistently well-struck balls. Last year he hit 21 home runs in 695 chances, 22 the year before. Kid's got talent. So that's another cheap, interesting outfield piece, hitting third in the Yankees lineup today. Luis Garcia, as mentioned, probably a little underpriced at this point at 4,700, but you've got the positional conflict to account for with him and Ben Rice both at first base in this Yankees lineup now. Not an issue on FanDuel where you can get Jazzy at third, you can get Garcia at second, still put Ben Rice at first, or obviously Util. A lot more flexibility with the Yankees lineup on the FanDuel slate. Between Garcia and Jazz, they're both tremendous DFS plays. I'm still a bigger believer that Jazz Chisholm Jr. is the more nuclear talent between the two. Luis Garcia's had a nice year. He's backed up a solid boost in production that he put up last year. He's been hitting the ball very hard all season, has better numbers basically across the board outside of stolen bases than Jazz, but we've seen Jazz go to higher levels than Luis Garcia in the past. Jazz is a star who's not having a good year. Garcia is a good player with furthering what was a breakout from last year. So difficult to say when they're coming in at basically the same price. Obviously, the first base thing helps decide it on DraftKings. But ultimately, I want them both if I'm going Yankees. George Lombard, Summer of George going on in New York City. First time I've gotten to talk about the kid. 2 home runs on the board already. 294, 400, 647 over 20 plate appearances. Obviously, is the resurrection of Derek Jeter. Kid's good, though. He's a high-end prospect for this organization. They've been waiting on him for a minute. Fortunately, gets Anthony Volpe out of our lives, hopefully for good. And the kid's been very good, delivering on his talent and playing fantastic defense at shortstop, which goes a long way to helping the Yankees pitching, which is an important thing to note. Spencer Jones at 32-26 has 5 home runs. Kind of disappointing. He's another big prospect that the Yankees fans have been waiting on for a while now. 3,200, 2,600, awfully cheap for a kid with the power upside that he's got, plus stolen bases. 5 homers, 4 steals in the 133. Otherwise, pretty lackluster through that slash line. McMahon is always playable for power upside. Multiple time 20 home run hitter this year, only 10 in 283 chances, missed some time, started getting platooned out of the lineup, still carrying a 10.4% barrel, 48.6% hard hit. You cannot convince me that Ryan McMahon doesn't hit the ball hard, because he does. He also strikes out a lot, swings and misses, is not drawing his walks this year, which is really problematic in delivering that 280 on base percentage. He's been flat out bad all year long, but he's got any given slate upside that is shared with some of the better lefty home run hitters in this lineup. And then Austin Wells has been just utterly awful at the plate this year. 8 homers, a 175, 273, 299 slash line. Ouch. Yanks were looking for a catcher at the deadline. I think they brought in Mitch Garver on waivers. I haven't seen Mitch. I don't think he played yet. But not great from Austin Wells. Kid they're expecting a lot from. Still a good catcher, though, fortunately. Let's see. Travis Duarte saying, how do you like Julio Rodriguez? I just talked about him a couple minutes ago. He's, again, at this price, fantastic. At this price, he's just fine. He is who he is. But yeah, everything I said at the DraftKings price, you're just paying for that guy, and it's a good price. And he's way better than that guy, as you can just look at this year's xWOBA to prove that, let alone what we know about him from years past. Man, this is a tight one. Ryan Weathers, Brian Wu, Yankees bats, Mariners bats. Very close, though. Red Sox, let's see, we got their lineup in. Dylan Cease just stands tall at the top of the board, 36% strikeout. We don't even worry about the 10.3% walks. It's a 26.1% strikeout minus walk rate, 2.28 ERA, 2.63 xFIP. All the numbers are in harmony with one another. 4.5% barrel rate, just a 33.1% hard hit. Just fantastic. So absolutely fire away, keeping the Red Sox at just 3.30 implied total. And again, it's a team that, hot as they've been, as many wins as they've rattled off in however many games over the last 2 months now, it's a team of overperformers. There's really no arguing it. And it's a team, even furthering that, of DFS overperformers. There are not a lot of big-time producers of numbers in this lineup. There are not a lot of reliable producers of numbers in this lineup. So facing a guy like Dylan Cease, outside of just the most spectacularly misguided attempt to get contrarian, they are not a strong contender for shares today. Going to taking my bias out of it entirely. Via Fangraphs Game Sims, an 11.5% probability to get more than 8 runs on the board, 4.4 to get more than 10 plus. You can see how that compares to the teams at the top of the board. So it's not just me, the Yankees fan, hating the Red Sox, which I do. On the other side, the Blue Jays, slap-hitting, low strikeout organization. Charles McAdoo, Brett Bateman leading into Vladdy Guerrero, George Springer, but then following out the other end with Alejandro Kirk, Ernie Clement, Andres Jimenez, Miles Straw. It is not a strong lineup. You do have Kaz Akamoto with a little bit of power in the 7 spot with 24 homers on the board, but it's been rough for the Blue Jays. Can't imagine being a Toronto fan right now. That puts Patty Sandoval at least in the mix on DraftKings, 6,900. Great price over there. He struck out 22.9% in his 24 innings, his 5 starts, worked to a 3.38 ERA, but a 4.29 xFIP, 4.23 Sierra. The 9.2% walk rate is where I get concerned if he starts putting guys on base. Again, low strikeout, just put a ball in play. Now we're sequencing. Now we're moving runners around. Put a few runs on it, even at the value price. It could bend that because he'll probably get popularity at that value price. So that would be the only concern, but I think he's good enough to get through it. There's enough justification at this price. At this price, I don't think there's all that much reason to go there. It's just too close to the better options on the board money-wise. Probably going to be a lot lower owned on FanDuel than he would be on DraftKings. But it's pitching focused in this game on both sides. If you're looking at the Sox lineup, it's Willy Abreu, it's Wilson Contreras. As we say, basically every time we talk about this team, the 2 guys with 20-plus home runs on the board, 113 and 155 WRC+. Wilson Contreras has been phenomenal this year. But outside of those 2, you get Adley added to the lineup today. Well, in the projected anyway. Nice cheap price for the catcher. That's a decent addition on DraftKings where maybe you can take the angle like through those 3 as your contrarian play. But do I really want to pay $14,300, an average of $4,700 a man, or almost $4,800 when we round it up, to face Dylan Cease? It doesn't strike me as great value even for the contrarian play, because now I'm buying into a cheap full stack somewhere. So I don't love that angle. Nick Sogard is not much of a hitter. He's getting on base a little bit, setting the table over his 95 plate appearances, but there's not a lot there. Rafael is good for counting stats, but we're going to come down over these next 2 months in his averages on base. Odds are 343 weighted on base against a 288 xWOBA. It's unsustainable overperformance. Masataka Yoshida, a reasonable line drive hitter in the middle of the lineup. Low strikeout, low walk rate, put the ball in play. Sure. Maybe he finds a couple singles against Dylan Cease, but there's, again, not a lot of potential to create runs if guys aren't going to be getting on base ahead of him. Caleb Durbin, just a slap hitter, low strikeout, medium walk rate, put the ball in play, see if you can beat it to first base type guy. 11 homers, 14 steals, 249, 320, 403, 99 WRC plus, point below average. People think he's good. He's not. Jaron Duran, Anthony Siegler. Duran playing poorly all year long, but one of the better players on this team, still has 16 homers and 17 stolen bases. Decent for counting stats, even amid the struggles, but difficult to get to at this point, especially against Dylan Cease. And Siegler's a nothing bad, 250, 316, 397, 3 homers, 2 steals. The Blue Jays are the better angle if you're determined to take bats here. The Vegas total tells you that, but they're sub 4. McAdoo for a leadoff bat at 2,000. You could stick him at second base. He's hit 2 home runs in 28 plate appearances. Hasn't done anything else. There is a little bit of potential talent there. It's not a great angle, but at least it's a cheap starting point. And then you get into Brett Bateman in a lefty-lefty spot, and his 20 plate appearances been pretty low end, 68 WRC plus that matches McAdoo's. We pulled Bateman up yesterday, and he is a mostly hit tool and speed-oriented player. So it's just right in line with what the Blue Jays already have. So not a huge piece of upside. You're choosing one of these two guys, not both, most likely. Vladdy you want, but underperforming across the board all year long, not hitting for any kind of power and not driving the ball with any kind of regularity or effectiveness, not delivering his usual numbers in any specific category. Is underperforming his xWOBA at 336 against that 309 actual, if you want to call out one positive attribute. But even this is greatly diminished from what one would expect his xWOBA to be, if that makes sense, right? The expected mark. George Springer, bad season, over 382 plate appearances, mostly dead. All these guys through here are low strikeout, reasonable walk rates, but that's all they're doing. Alejandro Kirk, hit tool focused catcher, mix and match piece on DraftKings, maybe at 33. You roll the dice here and there if you're just one-offing catcher across a bunch of lineups. That's usable. All you would need at that price is a couple of base hits against Sandoval. So that's a reasonable expectation from Kirk, but not a high upside one. Not one that speaks to stacking this team. Ernie Clement, I used him yesterday to make fun of Caleb Durbin, and here he is. 284, 307, 410, a 100 WRC plus, a 312 weighted on base, a 268 xWOBA. I mean, come on. Give me a little bit of credit. How much are those two guys basically the same hitter? Ernie Clement hitting for a much better average. 403 slug for Durbin, 410 for Ernie. 312 weighted on base, 319 for Durbin. 268, 289 xWOBAs, 99, 100 WRC plus. That was a blind comparison yesterday. Pat myself on the back. Caleb Durbin is Ernie Clement. Sign it. Kaz Akamoto, again, the one power hitter in this lineup, but striking out at a 31.2% rate so far. Andres Jimenez, Miles Straw, mix and match pieces down toward the bottom. You don't really want either one of those guys. Between the two, Jimenez is the more real fantasy asset. 8 home runs, 16 stolen bases. Straw more a slap hitter with a little bit of speed. Dylan Cease with a bullet. Patty Sandoval on DraftKings. Patty Sandoval on FanDuel, but no thank you. Blue Jays bats over Red Sox bats. Ooh, already 5 o'clock. We can hit the gas pedal a little bit. Drive, I would knock Snell a little bit. Reason you get him through the optimizer is because the median projection over like 5 innings, if you're using my numbers, compares pretty strongly to some of the top of the board. But knowing that he's probably going to be at least a little bit limited on depth compared to some of those guys, I would shave him down a little if he's coming up a lot for you. I think he's usable, but you wouldn't want a giant share of him, and it probably won't take that much to get beyond the field anyway. I don't think he's going to be super popular because I think everybody's skeptical about the depth. But he's tremendous, and again, he's talented enough to put up a solid score like what Kyle Harrison did in 5 innings just the other day. Mets a 408 implied total going up against Martin Perez. Again, I'd rather have these Mets going up against Perez than the Braves, even with their 4.52 implied going up against Nolan McLean. Fortunately, you don't necessarily have to take any given piece of this game. I do think all 4 things, though, are loosely usable. McLean's very good on the mound, facing a dangerous Braves team. The Braves, dangerous team, facing a good pitcher. Martin Perez overperforming on the year, but he's nice and cheap. 66, 74. He's a guy we've used over the years in cheap spots and succeeded with, failed with here and there. We know the quality that we're getting. We know he's not a 3.14 ERA pitcher, but the 4.14 xFIP under the surface, the 19% strikeout guy, that's reasonable to throw at this Mets squad, bad as they've been this year, for 66 as an SP2 on DraftKings. So if you're considering Patty Sandoval in that other game, I think Martin Perez is in that conversation at that similar price range. 74 on FanDuel, probably unnecessary, less than likely to give you the quality start in this spot or anything that you'd actually want. It's just an SP2 bargain bin conversation on DK, but I think he's on the board, much as I'd rather have the Mets. But McClain is the talking point on the mound, 28.5% strikeout, 10% swinging strike rate, needs to push that a little bit, but very good in terms of runs, 3.51 ERA with a 3.34 xFIP 3.44 Sierra that nearly match, has been very good at limiting premium contact and power while keeping the ball down on a 9.0 degree average launch angle, 2.55% home runs allowed, entirely believable, and room for him to improve as time goes on in his career, honestly. Pitching already to a 19.71 strikeout minus walk. Again, 20% basically makes you an ace. Kid's right there, 97.99. He is fully priced as compared to the top of the board, probably in a little bit more danger than some of those other guys at the top of the board. Again, I'd rather face any of those teams than the Braves. I think it's a similar spot to Woo against the Yankees, but either one of these guys is very usable. It's just Woo is nicely discounted by comparison. Weather's same thing on the other side of that Yankees game. So there are more options once you start talking around the danger that McClain's in and how strong those options look in less dangerous spots. Mets bats, AJ Ewing, Frankie Lindor, Lou Bob, Carson Bench, probably my priorities, and then mix and match my way through the rest of this squad. You do get interesting pieces, though, right? Ewing has been pretty good over his 325 plate appearances in the outfield, 7 homers, 15 steals, delivering on expectations, a 106 WRC plus, not killing any individual category, but contributing in all of them, and a good table setter for a guy like Frankie Lindor, who since his return has been hitting the ball pretty hard. 11 home runs on the board in only 275 plate appearances, carrying a 344 xWOB under his 336 actual with a 115 WRC plus. I'm most interested in the 8.9% barrel with a 49.2% hard hit from a low strikeout, high contact hitter in a great spot in the lineup, I'll add. Bichette is underwhelmed on the season, but 264, 310, 378 from that spot in the lineup is at least playable. Third base for 44 is okay. 29 feels a little bit more discounted on FanDuel, while it's probably about the same relative to the different caps. Lou Bob is nicely cheap, though. For a player with multi-category talent, bad as he's been this year, limited as he's been over the last few years, I'm always going to be intrigued by just the gobs of talent that kid has. 36.28 is a great price. Hitting cleanup against Martin Perez, a vulnerable lefty, for Lou Bob to finally have a good day. 5 home runs on the season and 159 chances. 4,031 for Carson Bench, who's up to a 333 on base, 13 homers, 18 steals. Very, very strong season. 2 good takeaways from the Mets this year are AJ Ewing and Carson Bench, delivering on their talents and their prospect pedigrees, giving this team a little bit of light for the future in what has been an otherwise pretty dark season. Marcus Semien, pretty bad. Frankie Alvarez, another bright part of the conversation going forward for the Mets. He's mid-20s at this point. He's still got some youth on his side. 13 home runs, a 344 on base percentage, pretty spectacular, pushing walks up a little bit this season, making tremendous contact. That's added a few percentage points in barrel rate from what he was already doing, which was pretty strong contact. The regularity, the frequency has gone down a little bit, 54.3% hard hits last year, down to 43.9% this year. But overall, a lot of gains at the plate. That is a good player, 345 weighted on base with a near matching 347X. Jorge Polanco mostly shot over 131 plate appearances, mix and match piece, who's had much better seasons than this in the past. Don't know that we get it, but any given slate upside at the discounted price, just stick him in at second base if you need value. Gabriel Arias could also give you some of that. He's a kid who's always hit the ball hard. He also strikes out at in the past, 33 to 35% rate. This season, over 136 chances, a 42.6% rate. So a lot of zeros from Gabe, but you do get the occasional well-struck ball. You get the occasional homer, 5 on the season, 4 stolen bases. Again, if we're just throwing darts at cheap prices, reasonable consideration, I would say you want one of Polanco and Arias at the absolute most in any given lineup. Drake Baldwin, one of the best catchers on any given slate, 20 home runs in 428 plate appearances, crushes baseballs regularly. 4,700 is too cheap in an ongoing way. He should be above 5,000 every single day on DraftKings. 35 on FanDuel puts him in that range. 357 on base, 124 WRC plus. Ronald Acuna Jr., a superstar, one of the best players in baseball, full stop. 12 homers, 15 steals, a 118 WRC plus in a diminished, mostly lost half season. Love the upside on any given slate for Acuna. If you're going to the Braves against McClain, I can't really see doing it without Ronnie coming along for the ride. Same thing for Matty Olson. Their hard-hitting first baseman with 34 long balls on the year, a 342 on base, just another spectacular Matt Olson season. Michael Harris hit the ball hard all season. His price has gone down to 4,200, 31 on FanDuel. It's been a little bit diminished over the last few weeks, month and change, 292, 324, 94 on the year now. Still, again, hitting the ball hard all year long. The price has come back down because reduced expectations, I guess, for the final 2 months here. That is a good player in a great spot in this lineup who I can't, again, really justify not using him if you go to the Braves. It doesn't make sense to go around him. Ozzie Albies, I give you more reason to go around. 283 xWOB under his 321 actual, overperforming throughout the season. And every year when he's been good in the past has also been overperformance, but he's done it again and again and again. So at a point, it just becomes the expectation that he's going to overperform, which is a weird way of saying that. 41, 3,000 at second base, perfectly usable, great fifth man. Top 5 as a slice from this Braves team is a perfectly fine way to approach them on DK. They'll be fairly low owned even with that good total against McLean here. But I do think there's playability in the bottom end. Mauricio Dubon's just a mix and match utility man, but Mike Yastrzemski's had interesting years in the past for power, lefty bat to throw into the mix against the righty, only 8 home runs in a down season over 301 plate appearances this year, but nice and cheap way to fill out the outfield with a lefty if you want to get different out of that top 5. And then Austin Riley, former star, knocked down the bottom of the lineup today, 11.4% barrel on the season, has really rounded into form nicely. He's up to 14 home runs and 475 plate appearances. The last 2 months have been a lot better than the first 3 were. I think he's a reasonable option, 3,700 at third base. For all the home runs he's hit over the past few years, that is a very good player who's had back-to-back diminished seasons, no doubt about it, but still gives you fantasy upside here and there, and he would be a lurking option that people are not going to go to in a big way. Jim Jarvis, just a mix-and-match piece at shortstop. Nolan McLean, Mets bats, Braves bats, Martin Perez on DraftKings, and then Perez on FanDuel is pretty irrelevant. Reds and the Chi Sox. John Hansa points out Perdomo out. That is a blow to the Arizona stack. He came out of the game with leg issue, I want to say, yesterday. Forget what it was specifically, but I was worried about that. Definitely giving us a little bit of a ding. That said, given those monster numbers that they were putting up for potential to score 10 plus runs, I still like that spot. And maybe that pushes just people off of it because they don't want to, they don't necessarily feel as comfortable building with it. Go to they embrace some of the other chalk options and the Dodgers and the Rays, and maybe that gets the Phillies and the Rangers a little bit more popular. But yeah, a little bit of a diminishment for that top-rated Arizona squad, unfortunately, with that news. Before we get to that, though, Nick Lodolo coming back from a blister issue. Overall, just a 4.60 ERA, 4.85 xFIP, 17.9% strikeout against 9.7% walk. So even a fully healthy, guarantee me 6 innings of Nick Lodolo here, I would only say he's a value dart at 63 from the bargain bin on DraftKings. I don't think he's all that interesting at 83 on FanDuel. He's got some above average stuff for sure. He can find some strikeouts here and there, but overall not doing it over 12 starts. He hasn't been bad in terms of premium contact, but there is some there. 90.5 miles an hour of exit velocity, most notably on a 13.5 degree average launch. So more likely to give up some home run in the long term. And he's facing at least a couple good home run bats. Murakami, lefty, I'm not as worried about. Montgomery knocked a little bit lefty, but tremendous power from both of those guys. You get Miguel Vargas in the middle of the lineup with 24 homers from the right side this season. 14% barrel, 45.3% hard hit for Vargas. 4,800, 3,600 too. FanDuel price is elevated. The DraftKings price, honestly, for as good as he's been all year long, is really not that high. 235 average is probably part of that, with the way that hits count a little bit differently on DK versus FanDuel, where we're looking a little bit more power focused. But that's a little bit affordable for Vargas. And then the really interesting piece hitting cleanup for the White Sox against the shaky lefty here would be Randall Grichuk. 10.8% barrel, 47.7% hard hit. He's hit 9 home runs in 181 plate appearances this year. I don't think he's getting enough credit for the power output that he's had. His season hasn't been great or, large sample, but we've got multiple years of this guy hitting 20 home runs. We've got a lot of track record of Randall Grichuk being particularly good for power against left-handed pitchers. He's not a 40 home run guy, but he's a 20 home run guy. That's a great price at 29 and 24 on FanDuel, even better. 5.75 in the home run model, not exactly crushing it because, again, Lodolo's not giving up tons and tons of home runs. But last year, 3.46% home run rate. This year, 3.23. Year before that was just 2.64. So there are at least some home runs available there. Braden Montgomery, not a bad mixer at 35.29, switch hitter. 4 home runs on the board in 204 plate appearances. More talented than that, probably has more lurking power than that. Might need a little bit more development time to get it to actually emerge. Edgar Quero is the dead mid price at catcher on DraftKings, which always becomes interesting. Another switch hitter. 201 pretty bad plate appearances so far this year. A 43 WRC plus is problematic. 2 home runs on the board. Last year, across 403 plate appearances, this guy hit 268, 333, 356. Only had a 290 xWOBA under a 307 actual, so I don't want to get too excited about it. But that is obviously a much better hitter than the guy we've seen throughout this year. So just getting the batting average and the on-base skills alone that we saw demonstrated throughout last season for the dead mid price where we're required to play catchers isn't all that unappealing going up against Nick Lodolo. So reasonable option to keep in mind as a one-off catcher, reasonable option to keep in mind if you're going to the White Sox. Sammy Antonacci diminished against lefties, but in the lineup today because Nick Lodolo is a low-end lefty. 4,200 once we get out of the once we get into the bullpen. 273, 366, 402, 8 home runs, 14 stolen bases. Kid's been very good. And then Luis Angel at the bottom of the lineup, just a mix and match guy. 16 steals is the only upside he's given to anybody. On the red side, going up against Sean Burke. Again, Burke's been tremendous this season. 3.08 ERA, 3.68 xFIP, 3.45 Sierra. Nice breakout, up to a 27.4% strikeout against just 7.4% walks. He is right at that 20%. How about that? There's your perfect example. Sean Burke, I think it's fair to call him an ace this year. Killing it. I don't feel really comfortable saying that Sean Burke's actually an ace, but he's been pitching like one this season, so you got to give it to him. 20% strikeout minus walk. That's what we're looking for. Also, 36.5% hard hit rate, 89.1 miles an hour of exit velo, has been very good at limiting premium contact, inducing weak and medium contact. Despite being a fly ball trajectory pitcher, no problems with home runs this season. A little bit of a limiting impact on some of these bats in the Reds lineup, this hard-hitting, home run-happy Reds lineup. You do still see some elevated home run numbers, though. Ellie over the market, 10.35. He's hit 20 on the year, 21 steals and 431 chances. Just tremendous superstar-level talent. Sal Stewart, 9.74, not bad with his 25 long balls. And then J.J. Bleday, 9.90, has 20 home runs on the board also this season in just 373 chances. So still some premium power showing there at the top of the Reds lineup. That would be your priority group of hitters to get to. And then particularly on DK, Tyler Stevenson, who we talk about every single time we talk about this team on that site. 3,200 makes no sense for a catcher who puts the ball as consistently well on the ball, the bat on the ball as he does. 12.4% barrel, 46% hard hit. He's hit 10 home runs and 320 chances this year. He had 13 and 342 last year, 19 and 515 the year before that. Reasonable enough average on base skills. Not great, 248, 331, 411, but not bad. Not a guy who's going to completely shoot you in the foot if he doesn't go out there and hit you a home run. Just a 5.09 in the home run model, but more day-to-day power, any given slate power than that. At that price, hitting cleanup where you have to go to catchers, it's a great piece. It's just they're at a 3.40 implied total because of how good Sean Burke has been this year. Junior Suarez. All those things are also true about Suarez, and he's a much bigger home run hitter than Tyler Stevenson. He's priced at just 36 on DraftKings today, 29 on FanDuel. He's hit 16 home runs. The power has kind of come back over the last few weeks, month and change, but overall really diminished slash line on the season, really low-end performance when we talk about just frequency of contributions. Hector Rodriguez, a premium rookie for this team, 22-23, was one of the league leaders in the minors in several categories if memory serves. In 455 AAA plate appearances this year as a 22-year-old, he was slashing 274, 347, 533, had 27 home runs, had scored 72, driven in 69, striking out just 20.4% against the 9.2% walk rate. This was his second stint in AAA. He got promoted last year for 230 plate appearances as a 21-year-old. Put up reasonable numbers, 7 home runs, 9 steals, solid slash line. Only 6 stolen bases this year. That's a diminished part of his game so far, but does have that throughout the other stops in the minors, mid-teen stolen base totals at every stop. So high-end fantasy talent and an interesting piece at just 2,200 if you're considering Reds bats. Helps cheapen things up in an already cheap Reds lineup too. You grab those 3 guys and then your favorite two out of the 3 power bats. And for me, if I'm building with this, would probably be, I mean, obviously we want Ellie. So it's really your favorite between Sal Stewart, JJ Bleday. I think I would take Bleday here just to take the discount. And because there's just such an abundance of hard-hitting first basemen for similar or better prices. You also get the big lefty bat against the righty if you do that. That brings us to a 19,700 total for the 5-man. And an average price of $39.40, so $4,000 a piece for each of those guys. That is really cheap. So bad as a total as that might be, low ranked as they might be, they're 17th here. You can see how the value pops on DK a little bit. 13th ranked by value and 7th ranked by home runs. 15.4% probability of going over 8 runs and 6.5. That is probably out of your lower ranked, like third of this board, or lower ranked even half of this board. The Reds are one of the more interesting squads, even with as good as Burke has been. I would still say Sean Burke, White Sox bats, Reds bats, Nick Lodolo at the very bottom. But Nick Lodolo on DraftKings is in that bargain bin conversation. O's, Twins, mid-4s implied totals on both sides of this one on a deep pitching slate. I don't think we're getting to Brandon Young. I don't think we're getting to Bailey Ober with those teams showing up like this. Ober 4.45 ERA, even higher xFIP and Sierra. Young has at least pitched to a 3.43 ERA in his 19 starts, but he's only striking out 19%. He's also got an underlying 4.41 xFIP, 4.48 Sierra that make him look a lot like Bailey Ober on the other side. Little bit of premium contact on a fly ball trajectory could also lead to some home runs against a fairly hard-hitting Twins team with some quality lefty home run hitters like Cody Clemens in the lineup. Lefty with some power that hasn't really arrived in a big way, but some on-base skills that have in a big way for Trevor Larnach in the leadoff role. Mentioned both those guys because they're back in the lineup with a righty on the bump today where they were out against the lefty. We talked about platooning and what that means yesterday. But I don't think we're looking at Brandon Young all that strongly. He projects out okay for the money. 78, probably not cheap enough on DraftKings, though. 88 on FanDuel, certainly not. And Ober is just lower than that. Even in the bargain bin conversation on DK at 67, I don't love the Bailey Ober option. 16% strikeout. There's not a lot of ceiling on that number. You could do better. O's bats against Gunnar Henderson, big piece. Only 2,900 on FanDuel, a little cheaper probably than the 48 on DK, but discounted on both. 18 homers, 9 steals. We talked about the struggles throughout the season and how it's cost the Orioles a lot of upside in the grand scheme of things, but that's still a very talented player pulling an 11.28 in the home run model against a very vulnerable pitcher, allowing a 3.60% home run rate on a 21.6 degree average launch. There's a lot of fly ball upside against Bailey Ober, and then we just talk about home run to fly ball rate. Petey Alonso, 52.34, looks expensive as compared to those other prices, but that's very affordable for a guy with 25 home runs. Hits the ball as frequently hard as he does, 56% hard hit rate on the season, 13.6% barrel. Talked about Jackson Holiday quite a bit yesterday, and love the upside for him going forward. He's delivered a strong season, over 221 chances. He's slashing 251, 353, 396, 113 WRC plus, 6 homers, 6 stolen bases. Had an underappreciated year for counting stats last season in his, basically first full season in the show. I think he's underappreciated. He's hitting third now, nice and cheap at second base. That's a strong option if you're going to this O's team, and a good reason to go there, honestly. Teller O'Neill, same thing, 2,700 in the cleanup spot. Went 0 for on us yesterday after a strong stretch of 4 or 5 games where he was putting up solid OPS, hit a few home runs. That's the name of his game. The major power bat over the last handful of years when healthy. And right now he looks fully engaged. He looks healthy, up to 10 home runs and 226 chances. Christian Encarnacion Strand, a major source of power potential. 3 home runs and 61 plate appearances, putting good wood on the ball so far in his return to the show. We haven't really seen him deliver on his power potential in the ongoing sense in the major leagues, but tremendous minor league numbers for power over the years. Was a very high-end prospect with the Reds, kind of flamed out. Now with the O's, like the upside at 43, 29 at third base on either side. Positional conflict with Kobe Mayo, that kind of sucks because you get a lot of those attributes out of Mayo as well. 15 homers for him and 302 plate appearances this year. Mashing baseballs when he gets the opportunity. That is a nice, cheap price. Play the discount game back and forth where you can afford CES. He'll probably be nice and low owned. Where you need the discount, take Kobe Mayo. They give you the exact same kind of upside. Christian Franklin, dead mid price on DraftKings. Gotta look him up real quick. Franklin is about to be 27 years old, quad A type talent, 272, 390, 427 in the minors last year, 12 homers, 19 stolen bases. This year, 6 homers, 17 steals, lower end slash line, 101 WRC plus. Mix and match piece. Jeremiah Jackson, mix and match. Yoel Pozo, kind of the same thing down bottom of the lineup. But the O's are strong through that top 6. Basically, any combination of that top 6 against this pitcher, at least interesting. And you get nice and cheap through there on DraftKings and on FanDuel as well. On the Twins side, Larnach, great for on base, does have more power than he's put up this year, but overall a strong season, a 128 WRC plus, excellent 355 weighted on base, lower end 332 XWO, but that's still above average. And if he gets anything back toward the hard hit rates, 10 points of additional hard hit that he had in previous seasons, let alone the barrels, any given slate, the upside for Trevor Larnach to explode is pretty tremendous. Ryan Jeffers, 52-31, playable catcher, 10 home runs, excellent 234 plate appearances out of him, hitting the ball very hard. Josh Bell has had a tremendous season, 16 home runs on the year, driving runs in like crazy, paying off opportunities from the strong on-base percentages that appear ahead of him in the lineup on basically every single slate. He's only 3,500 on DraftKings. He's 28 on FanDuel. Take advantage. That's a great piece to throw at Brandon Young. If you're going to this team, switch hitter will be hitting from the left side today. Like the upside there. And then Cody Clemens, 11.5% barrel, 45.8% hard hits, 20 home runs on the season, leading into Royce Lewis with his 12.5% barrel. Both guys are inconsistent. I'd rather have Cody Clemens from the left side than Royce Lewis from the right. And I think Cody Clemens is ultimately the probably better player. But either one of those guys could deliver on a long ball today. There is talent there. Brooks Lee's a little bit more mix and matchy. I believe in his 17 home runs given his contact, less than I believe in the power output from these two players, which is very real. Luke Keishel, just a mix and matchy type guy, but hitting for a little bit of average, contributing across the board, scoring runs, 14 stolen bases, a solid 356 on base. He's a playable piece at those prices. If you're going to this squad, probably like him better at second base than just another outfielder at the price on DraftKings. Alan Roden is a hit tool-oriented player who has not founded over 57 plate appearances this year and did not really in limited action last year. And then Kalen Culpepper, the hot shot rookie, 1 home run in his, I believe the first game, 13 plate appearances so far of limited output, but a lot of talent and up and comer for this team that was apparently a part of conversations they were having with after the Blue Jays traded for Jose Soriano. They were looking to maybe flip him. Had a conversation with the Twins about Kalen Culpepper, but couldn't get together on it. What does the stacks board say? Yeah, they're another pairing right next to each other. The Mets and the Braves are right next to each other. The Twins and the O's are right next to each other. Given the value marks, I think the Orioles are probably the more interesting. So I'll say Orioles, Twins, despite those Vegas totals. I think that bears out with the probabilities as well. And then Brandon Young over Bailey Ober every time, but I really don't want either one of these pitchers. Chrissy Sanchez, just tremendous. 149 and 2/3. Pitching to a 2.65 ERA, 2.60 xFIP, 27.8% strikeout. Couldn't ask for anything more out of a starter. Doesn't allow home runs, keeps the ball to a 2.7 degree average launch. The Cards are in trouble for creating any kind of offense today because when they get it, a lot of it comes around the long ball. So don't really want Cards bats. Definitely want some Chrissy Sanchez on the mound. Andre Palante on the other side does that exact same thing, 5.7 degree average launch. He just doesn't do any of the rest of the stuff that Chrissy Sanchez does. So he's a value mixer, maybe at 71 on DraftKings. I think he's mostly irrelevant at 79 on FanDuel. Even if he goes for a quality start, it's still not going to come with enough additional points upside, I don't think, because he's a very low strikeout pitcher who's probably in some trouble with the Phils pulling in some strong probabilities to go for a relatively explosive day. 25.9% probable to go over 8 runs, 11.4 to go over 10 runs. Not bad for the hard-hitting Phillies. More interested in Phil's bats, given that part of the equation, than the cards against Chrissy Sanchez, obviously. If we're starting out with the Phils, we're obviously going Kyle Schwarber with all his on-base skills. Best 3 true outcomes hitter in baseball, 145 WRC plus, 35 dingers on the season, a 15.4% walk rate. He's just fantastic. Trey Turner turned his season around, 17 homers, 17 steals, also scored 80 times because he gets on base. Even with that 295 on base for the season, remember, we looked yesterday over the last month plus, it was much more solid than that. So gets on base ahead of Bryce Harper, gets on ahead of a hit tool focused player like Luis Arraez for 4,500, 3,200. Both those guys, key pieces. Arraez delivering second base eligibility, but you also get the twist that Harper now has outfield eligibility. So you can get everybody basically together in this lineup now, which is great. JT Realmuto, just a mixer at catcher. 40.4% hard hit rate is the lone attribute to really cling to. Is still relatively low strikeout, medium walk rate. So you're getting some well-struck balls in play. Hasn't really delivered on anything, though. 293 weighted on base against the 323 xWOBA. He's underperforming. 8 home runs on the season. Just hasn't been good, but the price is commensurate with that. So not a bad piece in the middle of the lineup, just hasn't played well. Bryson Stott, reasonable mixer at second base from the left side. Brandon Marsh, probably more interesting, a little bit more real power from him. He was getting on base like crazy earlier in the season, hitting for a ton of average on batting average on balls in play. It's been a little bit diminished over the last month plus, but still a very good option for a now reduced price at 42.28 in the outfield. Alec Bohm, 35.28. Talk about a player who's at reduced price because he's been bad throughout the season. What he has still done is cash in on regular opportunities to drive in runs. 63 ribbies despite hitting 227, 288, 359. Still a playable piece at third base, less so at first. Justin Crawford, just another outfielder at best. To accelerate things, if you're going to the cards against Chrissy Sanchez, it doesn't feel like a great idea. I want JJ Weatherholt, even lefty-lefty, because he just fills second base at a reasonable price. And once we chase Chris Sanchez, which would be the goal in that situation, he becomes more of an asset. 16 home runs, 12 stolen bases on the season. Ivan Herrera and Jordan Walker, absolute priorities. And then you're mixing and matching your way through the rest of these guys. Burleson diminished against the lefty, particularly one that keeps the ball in the yard as much as Sanchez does. So that's problematic. Jose Furman, Mason Wynn, Everson Pereira, and Pedro Paez, not particularly good hitters going up against one of the best pitchers in baseball. So you can completely ignore the fact that they're right-handed. That leads us to Blaze Jordan, 2,500, 2,600. The kid's got very real power upside. He's also extremely low strikeout, extremely low walk. So if you're just fishing for well-struck balls in play, 8.6% barrel, 46.3% hard hits over his 147 chances, that's your man. You're looking at these two righties, Blaze Jordan, if you want to 3-man it, it's 3,900 apiece, 11.8 total. If you're going to this team and you want to extend it again, Weatherholt would be the priority. And then you can take the super cheap right-handed bat. And then in that case, it's any one of those guys. Pereira's probably the most interesting because he actually demonstrably hits the ball pretty hard. So that brings us to a 5-man for 38.60 apiece, 19.3 total. But again, to face Chrissy Sanchez doesn't seem like a great idea. Sanchez at the top of the board, followed by Phillies bats, Palante on DraftKings, Palante on FanDuel, Cardinals bats. Hit the lineups button again here. When I hit that, you guys hit the like button if you haven't already. If you haven't noticed or if you weren't here earlier, pitching picks contest is ongoing. So far, no leaderboard because nobody's gotten one right, except for me, the guy I took off the board. I haven't taken one off the board yet. I'll give you guys Chrissy Sanchez. I'm going to take Dylan Cease off the board. The challenge here, and I think that's fair. The challenge here, the reason I took Cease instead is because of the strikeout upside. What we want to look for, you have to come back after the show, leave a comment on the video, make your starter pick of the day. It's got to be a guy who delivers us 6 innings of 3 earned runs or fewer, aka a quality start, and 8 or more strikeouts. You get that right, You get a tick in your favor. First 1 to 5 correct picks wins. You get a free month of rotoscouts content. You can cash that in anytime right now for baseball only, or in the future, baseball, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, all of it. Every single sport is included on every single main slate. Under $1 a day when things are regularly priced, but that gets your free month. Also scrolling across the bottom of your screen right now, promo code Try Me, all one word, capital T, capital M. Free first week on a weekly. Use it right now. Get behind the paywall. Use these projections tonight. You could do that. Get in behind the paywall for free. Grab the projections. Grab the stacks board. And you can mute the rest of this show. You don't have to listen to me ramble. That might be the best upside you could possibly get for free. Promo code Try Me. Free first week on a weekly. That does renew at regular price, which is $6.93 for the next week. If not, cancel anytime. Texas Rangers, monumental power upside again. 4 guys in the lineup above the magic number, which is 10 for a significant home run potential here. It's all the predictable guys. It's all the hard-hitting home run hitters in this lineup. They're going against Ryan Johnson, who has a home run problem in his 10 starts in the show, 5.63% home runs. I illustrated it earlier in the show. I won't dig too deep back into it. Just know that reliable home run upside for the Texas Rangers today, and they come through with reasonable marks as far as their probability of cashing in on that. 21.3% probable to go over 8 runs, 9.3% likely to go over 10. It's debatable how popular they're going to get. It's probably some back and forth with them against Arizona as far as that what the Perdomo situation does to the Arizona chalk, but they are 4th ranked by Vegas total, so they probably do draw the eye. And then that home run difference. Home run pick of the day comes from the Rangers lineup. I think he looks pretty tremendous, and he's awfully cheap on DraftKings for a guy who's doing what he's doing. Cheap on FanDuel too, but just silly, stupid, crazy cheap on FanDuel or on DK. Jock Peterson, first baseman. You get a positional conflict with Jake Berger, which is unfortunate, but you're taking Jock most of the time there anyway. That's a massive piece. 11.2% barrel, 49.6% hard hit, 21 homers in his 356 opportunities, has been delivering regularly since moving into the leadoff role. I don't understand why he's 3,300. 29 on FanDuel makes a little bit more sense. Love that we can plug him in the outfield on FanDuel as well. Get him, Wyatt Langford, speaks for himself. 13 home runs, 259, 323, 475 over just 288 plate appearances. Super talented young player. A lot of upside there. Coming in at 14.59, second on the team in the home run model. And then into Corey Seager. 14% barrel, 11 home runs in 255 chances is okay as far as the power output goes. 334 XWO, but a target underneath all the underperformance and the ugly in this lost season. Still a fantastic player, still a superstar. I don't care about these 255 plate appearances. 3,100, 4,300, more than takes care of that. Brandon Nimmo is our first guy who maybe slips a little bit as far as ownership compared to like those top 3, maybe Jake Berger down lineup a little bit, because I don't know that people are fully caught up with Nimmo. He's only 3,000 on FanDuel. He's 38 on DraftKings. Delivered 13 home runs, a 276, 343, 448 slash line, 124 WRC plus. He's been downright good and has been even better in years past. But just kind of seen, I think, across the board as like a guy, just an average mix and match type outfielder. And I think he's so much more than that. Tremendous ability to hit the ball hard with regularity, relatively low strikeout, medium walk. So you get a lot of that premium contact. In years past, he's drawn more walks than he has the last 2 years. But putting regular bat on ball and carrying a 372 XWOB underneath that 345 actual. So everything is basically confirmed by that this pretty good season is an underperformance so far for how he's actually hitting the ball under the surface. Really, really interesting lefty for cheap, 3,800, 3,000 to throw at Ryan Johnson here. Ezekiel Duran, mix and match infielder, like him a lot better on FanDuel with the positional flex. He's had a good year, but he's just an average type talent when we're really being honest about things. Evan Carter may be interesting for a little bit of line drive ability from the left side. Also has 14 stolen bases on the board in an otherwise pretty low end season. Berger, tremendous source for power late in the lineup, 10.8% barrel. You can reach him on FanDuel positionally. You cannot on DraftKings have him and Jock Peterson. A little bit of back and forth, but considering Jock's spot in the lineup for cheaper and more home run upside, I lean in that direction. Austin Wynn's Nicky Lopez, just mix and match pieces at the absolute best, dragging down the bottom of that projected lineup. On the Angels side, going against Cody Bradford, who had one decent outing the other day, 4 1/3, struck out a few hitters. If I could pull it up, I'd give you the game log. There it is. We're scrolling up too far. We need to hurry up the end of this show. 4 1/3 in that start, faced 20 hitters, gave up 5 hits, struck out 5, walked 2, no earned runs allowed. That was against the Giants. Had not gone more than 4 innings in his handful of minor league outings, made 5 starts down on the farm, 2.25 ERA over 12 innings pitched, struck out 16 minor league hitters in the 12 innings. I gave him 5 innings here. He doesn't look particularly good. Comes out at an okay median score, but I don't think there's all that much ceiling here. Unplug the mouse. So I don't think we're really looking in Cody Bradford's direction, even at the 73 on DK. I don't think there's a lot of upside there. 84 certainly not on FanDuel. And the Angels do have just that lurking power upside from the right side in Mike Trout, Zach Neto in this lineup. They're greatly diminished through the rest of the lineup, which we talked about a little bit yesterday. But you do have interesting Jose Citi down in the 7 spot from the right side. He's hit 7 home runs in 139 plate appearances. Makes major premium contact and has done throughout his career. There's just a lot of strikeout, a lot of inconsistency, tons of zeros in your life if you're playing Jose Citi regularly. But he pays off big slates from time to time with the very real power that he has. So dangerous for power there, dangerous for power up there against a vulnerable enough lefty. Even in that reasonably good start over a handful of innings, gave up a lot of exit velo at 92.1 miles an hour of average exit velo. That would lead to home run power for Mike Trout. But Vaughn Grissom's not good. Ozzie Peraza's not good. Wade Meckler's not good. Tyler Heineman's not good. Nolan Shanuel at least gets on base, but he's setting the table for all those not good players that I just named. And then Moises Ballesteros is on this team now. He hit a handful of home runs early in the season, 6 while he was with the Cubbies, over 202 plate appearances. Did nothing else, 78 WRC plus. Does hit the ball consistently hard, though. So that would be another maybe sneaky interesting piece if you're going to the Angels. Lefty is not going to help him, but Bradford, not exactly an upside starter. Just matching your way through the Angels lineup, though. It's not really high end. Between the two teams, Rangers far more appealing for their side of it going against Ryan Johnson. Texas Rangers, Angels. I guess Bradford on DK. And that's it, really. It would be Bradford on DK, then FanDuel, and then the other pitcher, but there's no reason to even include that. Rays highest point on the slate at that 605 implied team total. If I reran the probabilities, they might overtake the Diamondbacks with a couple pieces missing from the D-backs originally projected lineup. Both teams still look tremendous. I would expect the Rays are going to be the absolute chalk of the day, but they look worth it. 9.91 in the home run model for Yandy Diaz, 9.49 for Jonathan Aranda. I think Chandler Simpson's interesting if he's hitting third ahead of Junior Caminero, just with his ability to get on base, swipe a bag, and then get in a scoring position, get driven in by Junior with a double or the long ball, obviously. He's hit 34 homers on this season, been utterly tremendous all year long. If you hadn't noticed, 151 WRC plus. Did you guys see the other day? It was last week sometime. It was batting practice, but still, he hit one of the banners hanging in the rafters in the outfield above the stands with a home run ball. Again, batting practice, but still, that's a shot you don't see guys hit in like the home run derby. Just ridiculous thunder in that bat. 13.5% barrel on the season. You have tremendous on base options there. A lot of interesting just category contribution out of Chandler Simpson. Now again, up to 305, 333 in the front end of the slash line. That's all we really need from him. Blazingly fast when he manages to get on base. Liam Hicks on this team now. Low strikeout. Really interesting hitter who can draw a walk, limits Ks, puts the ball in play, just doesn't hit it particularly hard, but finds a lot of success for average, gets on base like crazy, and has hit 15 home runs this year. They're kind of outliers, but situational power is very real for Liam Hicks. Another solid lefty to throw at Mason Barnett here. Victor Mesa Jr. comes in with some power. 9 home runs on the board and only 164 plate appearances out of him, putting up a 12.7% barrel. Kid can also swipe a bag, 5 stolen bases in limited action so far. Potential multi-category contributor, another guy with long bloodlines in baseball too. His father was a star for years and years in Cuban baseball. Ced Mullins, multi-category contributor, 13 homers, 18 stolen bases. Bad as he's been otherwise, shaky as he is for regular contributions, when he connects, the upside is still there on a day-to-day basis. So with this thinned out lineup, it's actually unfair to say that now with the added pieces, right? With Simpson reclaiming his talent, with Mesa arriving and Liam Hicks joining the squad, it's not as thinned out and as top heavy as it had been a few minutes ago. But Ced Mullins, definitely one of those pieces that you either get very, very right or very, very wrong. And there's not a lot of in between with Mullins. Richie Palacios, Taylor Walls, more mix and matchy than that. On the A side, 4.58 implied total for them is downright interesting against Nick Martinez. 14.1% strikeout rate is nothing. There is a lot of contact available. 2.65 ERA is a complete outlier. He's got a 4.61 xFIP, 4.79 Sierra under the surface. When I say Nick Martinez has overperformed his talent on the season, he has dramatically overperformed his talent. He's dramatically overperformed the way he's actually pitching. The results have been way better than what he's actually doing to create results on the mound. He has been decent at inducing weak and medium contact. You got to give him that. Extreme fly ball trajectory pitcher, though, is not going to work out well in this ballpark if you roll this 100 times. Might not happen to work out in our favor today if we go to A's bats, and they are a little bit diminished as compared to that form that they were in the beginning of the season with all the home run hitters. But you still get Tyler Soderstrom. You get an interesting guy like Carlos Cortez with his ability to drive the ball. You get Lawrence Butler, a former 2020 guy. You get Henry Bolte down lineup with a little bit of multi-category contribution possible and a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. Zach Geloff rejoined the team yesterday. He's got 2020 upside in a full season. So there are still reasonable options through this lineup. And then you get mixers like Jeff McNeil, a slap hitter, and maybe get on base at the table for Tyler Soderstrom. Not a priority play, but awfully cheap. Just another outfielder. You don't want Jeff McNeil at first base. Second base on DK. Second or outfield on FanDuel, I guess. Jacob Wilson's just a hit tool focused player. 268, 299, 393. Not really delivering on that talent this year. I don't really think 4,400 is a very justifiable price, and I don't really want Jacob Wilson at shortstop. I don't want Jacob Lopez at shortstop either. Jonah Heim, okay, catcher option at 4,200, 28. If you're going to this team, sure. Not a real reason to go to this team. Donovan Walton, just a mixer down lineup. The A's do provide a little bit of believable upside. You just have to catch Nick Martinez on the downside when it eventually emerges. Last time out, 5 2/3 clean at Coors Field. 6 hits, no runs, 4 strikeouts. Start before that, blew up against the White Sox. 6 innings, 6 earned runs on 7 hits, struck out just 2, walked 0, allowed 4 home runs in that game. Yikes. I missed that one. That was on the 31st. Prior to that, had gone 4 straight starts, not allowing more than 2 earned runs and allowing just 5 earned runs total. Prior to that stretch, 3 straight starts of 3 earned runs before the only other blow up on his ledger this year, another 6-run game that was against Detroit back on June 3rd. He's due. I almost said due, right? Due is not a word in our vocabulary around here. But out of all the targetable pitchers, this is one of the biggest overperformers on this slate who does not strike hitters out, who allows a ludicrous amount of contact, doesn't walk hitters either, not giving away opportunities, but pitching in one of the most hitter-friendly parks in the league. Maybe primed is the right word. Nick Martinez primed for a blow-up here. Primed to deliver the bad start from the bad starter that he actually is. A little bit of lurking upside on those A's. They cash in the middle of the board, a little bit better on the value marks, but limited for home runs because, again, he has been annoyingly decent at inducing weak and medium contact despite all the fly balls. Ballpark helps with that. Rays bats, A's bats. Nick Martinez uncomfortably on DK. Nick Martinez on FanDuel, but I don't really want him. And Mason Barnett I don't think is relevant really to the conversation here. The Rockies looking frisky in terms of the probability. We talked about this if you weren't here early in the show. They don't look good Vegas total-wise. 15th by Vegas total, just 13th by home run probability going up against Mitch Pratt here. But they are pulling a ceiling. 21.4% probable of going over 8+. One of the top-ranked teams in that category. 10.8% probable of going 10 runs plus. 5th ranked in both of those categories. 3rd by DK value. 4th by FanDuel value. Pulling points. They're interesting. I don't know that they got popular today. They've been basically every time we've tried to do this with them, completely disappointing. So know that you're very likely to book a 0 or a low score, not cash if you do this. But I think they're a potentially very interesting angle into this slate. Mitch Pratt, 27 2/3, striking out just 17.2% while walking 14.8% is completely unsustainable. 3.90 ERA in complete defiance of those numbers. 5.89 xFIP, 5.82 Sierra. Those are the real numbers so far. Giving up a 22.4 degree average launch, so home run balls are in play. Hunter Goodman drawing a 13.61 in the model. Lefty has Mickey Moniak out of the projected version of the Rockies lineup. We'll see whether we get him. I think they might maybe throw him in. Because if we're looking to chase this pitcher early, no reason not to have him in there. We'll see what they do there. That would obviously be another big piece of power impact. But they've got some interesting bats through this lineup. Jake McCarthy mostly overperforming this year with that 368 weighted on base against the 321 xwOBA, but he's been tremendous while doing it. 13 homers, 20 stolen bases, providing counting stats across the board. Going to be a part of it if this team goes off. Low strikeout, low walk, so puts the ball in play frequently. A lot of benefit from Coors Field, obviously, in is not well. I shouldn't say definitely because I haven't actually looked, but I'm assuming there's a lot of benefit from playing in Coors Field. But this is also a positive hitting situation, so that's in play tonight for him. Kyle Karros is awfully cheap at $3,300 at third base. He's $3,000 on FanDuel. Those are very different prices. Over 393 plate appearances, 9 home runs. He scored 57 times. Not bad, getting on base at a 361 clip, putting up a 343 weighted on base against a 337 xwOBA, hitting the ball fairly hard, 41.7% hard hits. Drawing a ton of walks. Another strong bloodline if we're talking about the genetics of baseball. Dad was a long-time major leaguer. It's just a good piece for a very cheap DK price on an interesting squad. Cole Carrick, there's a lot of skill there to contribute for fantasy. 5 home runs, 6 stolen bases, been decent in those categories, but in 200 plate appearances so far since joining the Rockies, scored 35 times, driven in 30. Cashing in on frequent opportunities, 371 weighted on base. There's overperformance for sure against that 334 xwOBA, but he's got the speed to continually defy xwOBA, doesn't strike out, draws walks. Been really interesting. If you can find a little bit more consistency of premium contact, we go up another level with Cole Carrick. I am very interested in the future. Switch hitter too. Goodman, obvious for his power upside. Enough said, 34 home runs on the board. TJ Rumfield is solid for a little bit of batting average upside. The 13 home runs are an outlier, but the average, the on-base skills are nice. Reasonable lead into Willie Castro, the bottom of the lineup around Jordan Beck, who's awfully cheap. Beck has not really delivered on what the skill set is supposed to be. He was a relatively high-end prospect. Now he's just a cheap outfielder who hasn't delivered over 104 plate appearances, but a mixer at worst. Connor Norby's interesting for a little bit of premium contact upside that he hasn't delivered on so far this season, but another young player who maybe can start figuring it out, or on a positive upside slate, just get one good game in for us. Ezequiel Tovar, pretty lost overall this season. 9 homers, 5 steals, 204, 250, 329. Ouch. Might be the last we ever see of Ezequiel Tovar this year. On the D-back side, one of the top teams on the day, even with Perdomo coming out of the lineup. You get Lars Newport moving into the leadoff role. I love that spot for him. 3,400, 2,700. That is really appealing to throw that lefty bat from the leadoff role at Tomo Sugano. Sugano, 13.5% strikeout. There's just so much contact available. 90.8 miles an hour of exit velocity on average within that contact. A 13.8% barrel rate allowed. 4.88% home runs. This guy's just all downside. So even with Perdomo coming out of the lineup, even with no, who the hell am I thinking of? Somebody mentioned it. Kepler, Max Kepler. Thank you. Even with that big lefty home run hitter out of the lineup, there's still so much appeal in just attacking Tomo Sugano in a good hitting situation. And you still get Newport, who gets on base, who hits for power when he's going right. 8.8% barrel and 49.3% hard hit. Only 3 home runs in the 208 plate appearances and only a 112 ISO. But those numbers don't jibe fully with the contact he's actually making, and he's made even better contact in years past. Low strikeout, high walk rate leads to a lot of on base and a lot of opportunity for that low salary, hitting now ahead of Corbin Carroll, their star. Gabby Moreno, the premium catcher that we talk about all the time. He's only at 304, 385, 453 over 377 plate appearances. He's a monster for 4,400 on DraftKings where you need the position. 3,000 on FanDuel. Just act like he's their first baseman. He puts up numbers that are good enough. Ketel Marte, 49, 31, 20 home runs on the board. A diminished season across the full slash line, but still contributing power upside. Still plenty of any given slate power, any given slate potential. And the price is way down. Fill second base with a star. It's a great way to go. Nolan Arenado looks appealing at 3,800. If you look at the 18 home runs, I think he hit another one last night. The power's been there a little bit this year. It's not coming on any kind of frequency of premium contact. It's just incidental when he happens to put one good swing on the ball. So you're really gambling when you go to Nolan Arenado. but he's loosely playable because there's no tax on those 18 home runs that he's already hit. I think the sites get it with Arenado, that it's not really real. Less so on FanDuel at 3,000. That's shakier, but it's still there. 8.63 in the home run model. We're giving him credit for what he's been this year. The strikeouts you can see have gone up dramatically from where he used to be. Even last year was just 11.2% with that long loopy swing. 20.5% is significant, but it's still better than average. So there are some things with Arenado that you can point to. James McCann, just a mix and match catcher. Tim Tawa, Ildemaro Vargas, mixers at their respective positions. And then an interesting way to end the lineup in Ryan Walshman at 32.28. Over 194 plate appearances have been interesting. 339 on base, a 105 WRC plus. That's a playable piece that people will not necessarily get to at the bottom of the lineup just because of where he's hitting. Use the on-base skills, a little bit of speed, wrap them back around to the stars at the top of the lineup. Love that fit. That becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. Just top slicing the top four with the wraparound on Walshman. 42.60 a piece. 5-man total of 21.3 to get to the top ranked team or one of the top 2 or 3. And you can get it cheaper than that if you wanted. One silly way to do that would be to take Gabby out of the equation and do that around James McCann. At 2,900, you're saving quite a bit there. 39.60 average, 19.8 total for the 5-man. What I was originally going to do there was just go to Arenado to illustrate what he would do. In which case it would be 1, 2. I'd still want Gabby. Boy, I wouldn't want to do it instead of Ketel Marte. Maybe it's instead of Nootbaar then. If you just go through there and that, but then you're actually increasing the price, not saving. So let's say you went total oddball with it and took the highest pricing Corbin Carroll out of the mix. Carroll on the season, 16 homers, 16 steals, 241, 336, 466. Been perfectly fine. Maybe a little bit less than when we actually look at those numbers compared to the price. We know that he's better than that when fully healthy, but we also know he broke his hamate bone in spring training, which typically takes away from power. If you went like that, cheapest way to build a good lineup with this team, 39.40, 19.7 for the 5-man. But I think the best way is obviously that first one, something like that, or just top slice through there. D-backs, Rockies, neither pitcher. All right, we're going over 6 o'clock, but I think we pulled it together a little bit. Not too badly over. Trav Duarte says, Dylan Cease going to get Chigui against Boston? I'm struggling with it. I think Dylan Cease looks fantastic against Boston. Boston's not as good as they've been. It's a collection of overperformers. Keep that in mind. Dylan Cease, one of the top pitchers in baseball. Don't overthink it, Trav. It's a good spot for Cease. They might get him. It's baseball, but all probability favors Dylan Cease in that back and forth. Speaking of probability favors, Brewers, another team that's kind of defying in their long tail that short Vegas total, 16th by Vegas total, but one of the better ranks, 10th by 8 probability of going over 8 runs, 12th by probability of going over 10. And because of their quality, this is a team that is a little bit in defiance of those numbers, slightly, 8th ranked by projections, 9th on FanDuel. They're a little bit even better projected than those rankings just because of who they are, how frequently they get on base, and that run creation engine we talk about all the time with this squad. This is a team carrying a collective 335 actual WOBA against a collective 330X, but that includes those 290s at the bottom. We just take that out. We're already at 337X. They're getting on base at a collective 346 clip. They're just ridiculous. So tons of upside in the Brewers, even with that sub-4 implied total. They're going up against Walker Buehler. He's pitched to a 5.07 ERA, but has a 4.25 xFIP, 4.44 SIERA under the surface. Reasonable option for cheap on the mound at 65 on DraftKings. Wouldn't want him at 73 on FanDuel. I don't think there's enough upside there, and I'd much rather have Brewers bats even in the pitcher-friendly park. But I think the real talking point, Kyle Harrison, 31.1% strikeout over his 18 starts, 5.9% walk. My hope is you get him a little bit lighter owned than he ought to be at those cheap prices because of concerns about a short start. Missed a month, came back, went 5 innings, struck out 10 of 14 in his last start, 10 of 16, against Pittsburgh. Came out with a leg cramp. That doesn't affect how he's going to pitch. Well, I mean, legs do affect how you're going to pitch, but at least it wasn't his arm is what I wanted to say. He had been out for a month with a forearm strain. Now he's fully back, allowed one hit in that start, put up a 50-plus point FanDuel day despite only going 5 innings, facing a low-end Padres team in a pitcher-friendly park. I love the upside for Harrison. Even if he just pitches to the mean, we're probably competitive. And he's got ceiling that's in line with Dylan Cease, in line with Chrissy Sanchez. He is that good. If you go to the Brewers, Bryce Terang's a priority at 53.36. He's an expensive way to fill second base from a team at a sub-4 implied total. But again, any day you can get the Brewers at lower than expected ownership, and when they're putting up reasonable probabilities at big totals, at ceiling type days, they're interesting. And it's built around that those on-base skills. Terang's a big part of that, but he's also hit for some power this year with the 16 homers. He can also swipe you a bag, provide bonus scoring, and he's a good table setter for the guys that follow. Jackson Chouinio's a star, 17 homers, 11 stolen bases, 125 WRC plus upside for more in the ongoing sense. Jake Bauers, too cheap at 4,800, 3,400. I continue to not get why Bauers is cheap on DraftKings. Should be well into the 5,000s by now. 21 home runs on the board at 375 on base. What is he not doing? 36 for Andrew Vaughn is stupid cheap for his talent if he's in the lineup, by the way. 42.4% hard hit, limited barrels this year at just 5.9%. But look at the hard hit and the barrel numbers across the last couple seasons where he's had some up and down performances, but has always hit the ball hard, has always been low strikeout, medium walk rate, so a lot of well-struck balls in play, and has put up good home run totals with good slash lines when he's been in action. 19 homers and 619 chances 2 years ago, 14 in 447 last year. That's a good player with more upside under the surface for cheap prices. Garrett Mitchell hits the ball very hard, gets on base at a 352 clip to go with it. Eventually, those balls are going to start landing in the seats. I am utterly convinced of it. Just 8 home runs on the season, but a 13.2% barrel, a 51.1% hard hit rate. 31.8% strikeouts is a little bit much, but against a 12.3% walk rate, it works, especially once he starts cashing those home runs in a little bit more. William Contreras down in the 6th spot today. Monster for on-base percentage. He's slipped a little bit in terms of his average on the year, down to a 98 WRC plus, but tons of any given slate upside. 4,300 at catcher is a great investment for that player. Christian Yelich down lineup as well. 46.31, another potentially sneaky player. A former star, a current star, whatever he is at this point, bad season notwithstanding, that's a great piece with monster any given slate upside. Luis Lara, David Hamilton, mixers at the bottom of the lineup. If you go to the pods, Fernando Tatis has now pulled together what is a pretty decent season. 280, 349, 414, 11 homers, 26 steals. You take the name off of it, that's a very strong season, a 114 WRC plus. Still a ways to go over the last couple of months as well. 360 xWOB under that, 334 actual. Hit the ball hard all season, just spent too much time driving it into the ground and going the other way with it. Luis Rengifo, interesting mix and match piece in the 2 spot. Weird decision to have him hitting in that spot in the lineup, but you'll look to him to set the table for Manny Machado, Ty France, the guys that follow. Machado having a good year for power, limited for other output. 23 home runs, limited slash line, 96 WRC plus, but a 331 xWOB at a target for ongoing, overperformance, let's say, normalization through the last 2 months of the season, getting him back to at least more familiar territory. And he's still got a shot at a 30 home run season. 7 from here to the end of September, not out of the question. Ty France has hit 17 and only 329 chances. He's had a tremendous year, 291, 345, 527, 139 WRC plus. Still only cost 4,200 and 2,900 across sites. I don't think this site's much like I took a long time to come around to Ty France actually delivering this year. I don't think the sites are even there yet. Take advantage. 372 xWOBA against a 331 or 372 actually against the 331X. Obviously ongoing overperformance, but even once he comes down, this is a player who's delivered reasonable fantasy seasons in years past. So justification to put him at higher prices than he is. That's a discount. Jackson Merrill, solid year for counting stats in the outfield. 61 runs and ribbies, 19 homers, 23 stolen bases. Those are good counting stats. Any way you split it. The slash line is really disappointing. Just a 97 WRC plus. Lack of consistency, sure. But the upside is right where it's been. As good as he ever was. So with people going away from him for a perceived downside season, it's a good reason to go to him. Austin Hayes on this team now, 3,000, 2 home runs in 45 plate appearances, a little bit of power upside from Hayes. Luis Campusano, a little power from the catcher spot, 8.2% barrel, 44.7% hard hit. It's only resulted in 4 home runs and 134 chances, but a strong slash line to go with it, 296, 396, 478. It's a good catcher piece for only 3,900 if you're choosing to attack Kyle Harrison, but that doesn't seem like a great idea. And then Bogey and Jake Cronenworth, 2 veterans mostly lost through their action so far this season. Mix and match pieces at best. Kyle Harrison. Brewers bats. Walker Buehler, Padres bats, and it's really Buehler on DraftKings and Buehler on FanDuel's mostly irrelevant. But Brewers bats in a big way against him. Last 2 to go. Stroh's looking pretty good at a 4.63 implied total against Carson Whisenhunt, who I do maintain is a good pitcher. You can note the 14% swinging strike rate so far, over 22 1/3 in the show. That's spectacular. He's only cashed it into a 19% strikeout rate, and he's walking 14.3% so far. So he'll get some swing and miss, and then he'll walk you or allow you to hit a home run or drive the ball effectively. 10% barrel, 48.6% hard hits so far is problematic. 3.81% home runs is problematic. He's over the line or at the line. He's exactly at it in 2 of our categories, well over it in hard hits so far. Has not delivered on his talent at all in the show. Probably not going to against a very good Astros lineup. That has one of the very best hitters in baseball in it and a lot of usable pieces. At 53, I was trying to stall for time as I thought about it. Does he have a chance to give me 5? He went 5 on the 26th against the Angels, 5 2/3 against the Rockies on the 9th of July, and then 5 back in June 17th against the Braves. Best start was probably the one against the Angels. He struck out 7, but he did allow 4 earned runs over the 5 innings. In the 5+ starts against Colorado and Atlanta, he allowed only 2 earned runs in those 2, but limited strikeouts. And then the 2 more recent ones, the 5th and the 31st against the Rangers and the Pods, respectively, 3 1/3 in both starts. 4 earned runs against the Rangers, allowed struck out 4, walked 3, struck out 3, walked 4 against the Pods. Allowed a home run, 6 earned runs on 7 hits. In the minors, 4.15 ERA over 16 starts, 82 1/3, 90 strikeouts in the 82 1/3, and a plus changeup. He has one spectacular pitch. That is, it is there. Oops, that's the wrong one. It's only grading out okay so far via Stuff Plus, but it is grading out as his lone above average pitch. But it's an 80 grade changeup via traditional scouting. But yeah, attacking with Astros bats, Jordan Alvarez priority bat in that lineup, 17.1 in the home run model, just probably the best hitter in baseball right now. Jeremy Pena at 51.35, reasonably priced for all the output, star caliber shortstop over the last year and a half at this point. Isaac Paredes, mix and match piece at 39.29 in this ballpark, 15 home runs on the season, good at getting on base, setting the table for the guys that follow, like Jose Altuve with a little bit of power surge in recent games, up to 13 home runs, just a 94 WRC plus and limited overall on this season. But a veteran bat who can still put the ball in play, drive it, draw a walk from time to time. Christian Walker also just hunting for home run upside, 22 homers on the season, 9.65. Take the big righty bat against the lefty if you're going to the Astros today. I do like his upside at just 4,000, 3,100 for a little bit of power output. Dalton Varsho, mix and match piece in the outfield at best. Jainer Diaz is interesting at 3,700, given the power potential at catcher. It's a guy who can put the ball in play frequently. He's extreme low strikeout, extreme low walk rate, so just lots of balls in play. This year, they've been more poorly struck than in years past. 5.3% barrel, 34.6% hard hit. Last few seasons, he's been reasonably good barrel rates and 40+% hard hits, trending into the upper 40s in 2024. Cam Smith, excellent option for some underlying skills. 16 home runs, 10 stolen bases, hitting the ball very, very hard. I do believe that he's got more talent for getting on base than he's put up with that 298 on base percentage. 329 xWOBA reflects a little bit of that. It's a really interesting option down lineup at just 31.28. Jake Myers more mix and matchy. If you're going to the Giants, they're facing Hunter Brown, another premium starter on this slate. So far in 58 2/3, 11 starts, a little bit of a walks issue. leading to a 3.53 ERA, but a 3.95 xFIP, 4.22 SIERA under the surface that are a little bit concerning, but hasn't really allowed much premium contact or power, inducing a lot of ground balls and low trajectory batted ball events, 5.6 degree average launch. So there are a lot of positive attributes, even if he's giving away those free passes, to keep on limiting offense, to keep on punching his way out of any kind of trouble. And against the low end lineup like the Giants, I'm not really that worried about it. This team doesn't really draw that many walks anyway. They're a collection of low end players, slap hitters, and a couple guys for power, but no real options for consistency outside of like a Young-Hoo Lee, who does hit for a little bit of average, limit strikeouts. But yeah, sign up for some Hunter Brown, 9,300, nice price, 94. One of the upside pitchers of the day. If you're choosing to attack him with Giants bats, doesn't seem like a good idea at the 3.46 implied total with one of the lowest ranked teams of the day. We got to go down. The lowest ranked team of the day across basically every category. So there's your analysis of the San Francisco Giants. Let's save some time. Lee is a slap hitting hit for average type guy. Willie Adames hits for power, but nothing else, and has been pretty limited even in power output with 19 home runs and low end batted ball events this year. Bryce Eldridge, emerging star for this team. Monster power upside, very real numbers so far, but still a developing young left-handed player. Rafi Devers, low in season for Rafi Devers, but still 24 home runs on the year, an adequate 116 WRC plus. You just expect more from that player, but his price is all the way down to 3,900 now. Bryce Eldridge at 34, by the way. This team, stupid cheap. You just wanted to take the top five out of here. That's a 3,580 average, 17.9 total for the five-man. Oslevis Basabe, Drew Gilbert, Drew Kavanaugh, Grant McCray, Christian Koss. These are mix and match guys all the way down the lineup. You can see that through the home run numbers, through everything over here. Not a lot to work with on the Giants, but everybody up there is at least cheap for their talents and for what they've done through their careers. But Hunter Brown, again, very good on the mound. This goes Astros. This goes Hunter Brown. Astros bats. Nothing really from the Giants, but it's probably bats over Carson Whisenhunt in current form. One day soon, maybe not this year, maybe next, I will sell you or attempt to sell you some Carson Whisenhunt shares. He's on the dynasty team. I'm intrigued. I just like San Francisco pitching too. Rounding things out, Michael Wacha, as threatened way back at the beginning of the show. I'm going to talk about Michael Wacha a little bit. 8,000 on DK, puts him in playable range. 87 on FanDuel, a lot less so. Doesn't project great, but what I like about Wacha is even when he gives up a few runs, even when he's not going for a quality start, they let him get out over 6 innings, even into the 7th inning a fair amount of times or beyond. So there is depth here. He can pay off additional fantasy points, claw back some damage from a few runs, even against a team like the Dodgers, just on depth. He's only a 19.1% strikeout pitcher, but only 7% walk, so manageable. 3.44 ERA, but an ugly 4.38 xFIP, 4.42 SIERA, but at least those aren't in the upper fours. They're not 5. Limiting for premium contact and power, a very believable sub 3% home run rate, considering the 6.6% barrels, the ability to induce weak and medium contact. And this is who Michael Wacha has pretty much always been. So it would in no way, shape, or form knock me out of my chair if he put up 6 relatively successful innings. I'm talking about, 6 innings of not even a quality start. Let's say 6 innings of 4 runs. I said it earlier in the show. I think the exact same way. 4 runs, 5 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts. For the 8,000, if you're putting them together in like a mid combination, he will be your completely unowned wild card pitcher at a reasonable price. And then let's say you get him with, again, we're talking about here. Sean Burke at 85. You could probably fit that together given some of the bat values we talked about. I think that's a reasonable combo, and that puts Wacha appropriately as the SP2. You might even be able to go up the ladder to Hunter Brown at a higher price. Blake Snell, maybe not for ceiling reasons. Maybe Harrison's in reach at the 95. The combined price starts to get up there once you go up the ladder, but I think he's usable. And it's not because the Dodgers have been in a little bit of a mini slump or whatever. They're drawing a 5.36 implied total. They're one of the most likely teams on the day to go over 10 runs. We're talking about a team with a 16% probability of going over 10, a 30% probability of going over 8. So, reason to be concerned about the Wacha spot. But you have to at least highlight that he's a competent veteran pitcher with the ability to limit this team in some ways. Not completely, but maybe not to the ridiculous chalk levels that they'll be. Kind of like what we talked about with the Red Sox yesterday going up against Jacob Lopez in Sutter. On the Royals side, facing Blake Snell for as long as he's going to be in the game, they're probably not very likely to do much. The one issue that Snell has is around walks. Every now and then he puts too many guys on base, but he typically doesn't get burnt for it. Not bad as far as power goes. Excellent at punching his way out of trouble with the strikeout. And the Royals have been a mess through most of the season. 327 implied total, one of the lowest marks on the board, one of the lowest ranked teams on the board, 19th across points. If you're going there, it's all about Bobby Witt, their superstar shortstop. Jack Caglianone, lefty. I don't love it against a high swing and miss lefty, but you want to get Caglianone's power in there. 14.4% barrel, 55.4% hard hits. And then you're probably dealing with like Sal Perez and mix and match your way through. I don't want Jensen as much, and if I am taking Sal, I don't really want him. I don't really want Nick Lofton, but he's in the lineup because he's right-handed up at the top, and maybe you get a couple base hits and some on base out of him. But that's not a great option. Maybe it's just a 3-man if you consider Royals at all around the two big righties and then Caglianone. But you're still now paying $4,500 a piece for a diminished version of a Royal stack at that total to face Blake Snell for 5 innings. I don't like that at all. Marte, not really the hitter he once was. 245, 302, 320, 2 homers, 2 steals, and 162. Maybe you get a multi-category day. Probably not. 9.9% barrels, at least somewhat interesting. Mike Massey, 40.6% hard hit is his lone positive attribute. 9 home runs at 294 on base, pretty limited. Isaac Collins, Kyle Isbell, these are mix and match guys. Dodgers provide a lot of star power, though. We know that. They're awfully cheap on FanDuel, too. Just been this way. Everybody through there outside of Ohtani is at an average player price. So once you put that into play with Ohtani, it makes him very affordable. Even if you go through the top 4. Ohtani, Pajes, Freeman, Muncy. 34.50 average? What's wrong with that? That's a great price. They're more high priced on DK. That same 4-man group is 54.75 on DK. That's elevated enough to almost be out of reach. So much more affordable on FanDuel. Ohtani's a masher, a superstar, 26 home runs on the board, 500 plate appearances, just an utterly tremendous season. Possibly on his way to another MVP, but deserving of one even if he doesn't win it. 49.32 for Andy Pajes, reasonably priced on both sites. 19 home runs, 11 stolen bases, and a tremendous breakout season for Pajes, delivering on the promise of a strong season last year. Freddie Freeman, just another great year in the sun for Freddie. 308, 380, 476, 15 homers on the board. Love it. Max Muncy, another great 3 true outcomes hitter. 22 home runs, a 341 on base, and 11.7% walk. Fantastic batted ball events out of Max with regularity. 5,200, 3,200. Perfectly happy to pay that for third base. And then a discounted Mookie Betts, 3,000 across sites, 13 home runs and only 346 chances. Hitting the ball hard, limited across a lot of other categories, but still very low strikeout. Just tons of balls in play out of Mookie for that big a discount with his skill set in this lineup, I'll add. It's a tremendous piece. Kyle Tucker with the underperformance. Everything I just said about Mookie is also true about Kyle Tucker. You can use those two guys at their reduced prices as the two key pieces in a 3-man with like Tommy Edman or Teoscar Hernandez and not be making a mistake with this team. That's perfectly reasonable to do. They're just loaded. It's a line. It's 7 superstars or 6.5 superstars. A very good player in Tommy Edman, and then Ben Rortvedt does good framing job as a catcher. Dead mid-price Rortvedt, not much of an interest in him, even at that price at the plate. 128 pretty empty plate appearances last year. 328 the year before. He hit 3 home runs in those opportunities. 87 WRC plus, a .076 ISO. Not a lot of high-scoring fantasy games out of Ben Rortvedt. But Teoscar's a tremendous home run hitter. Only 39, 3,000, 11 homers in 327. He's diminished this season, but there's still a lot of lurking power there against Waka. It's a good LA lineup. Probably on their way to another World Series. What are they, like 30, 40% probable to win the World Series after the trade deadline? Love it. Burke or Brown on FanDuel, asks Rabbit Hole. Ooh, that's a good question. Boy, that's close. I would take the discount with Hunter Brown. He's in the better matchup as well, facing that Giants lineup rather than that Reds lineup with the lurking power. And the $400 discount is probably my tiebreaker. But that's an on-the-nose comp. That's a really good question to end the show with. I would lean Brown, but I'd be fine with Burke. No issues. Strong pitching slate, guys. We talked through a lot of it. Let me punch out of here. 6:15. I got to get the site updated in the next few minutes so we can actually use these projections. Give me 5 on that. Won't take me long. You guys rock. Take advantage of the free weeks. Promo code TRYME, capital T, capital M, all one word. Jump into the pitching pick contest. You need a quality start plus 8 strikeouts. Cannot use, who did I take off the board? Dylan Cease, right? For the strikeout upside, I said you can still have Chrissy Sanchez, Kyle Harrison, so on and so forth. Put that in a comment after the show. Win yourself a free month of rotoscouts content. First to 5 correct picks wins the free month. It's an ongoing multi-day contest. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share those results when you do at rotoscouts on Twitter or in the premium Discord, which is linked for free. Jump in. Come join the community gang. We'll see you tomorrow for more. Later.